are listening to Cemetery Confessions, the world's #1 goth talk podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the final episode of Cemetery Confessions. Well, the final episode of 2025. We are delighted to be joined by the gothic ghouls, the preternatural vampires of the Open Graves podcast. If you've not heard of the Open Graves podcast, it is a kindred spirit. The show is hosted by Vesta and Heather, who invite guests on their show to talk about the psychological and sociological experience of living as a goth. I know I've mentioned the podcast on this podcast before, and I remain a big fan of the kind of content that they are putting out over there. So it's really a personal pleasure to be able to chat with them today. And what we're going to be chatting about includes the LA goth scene, a big discussion around what the practical lived experience of goth looks like, from whether or not a mindset has anything to do with it, to the devaluing of goth clothing, the importance of aesthetic, the idea of goth as an umbrella term, and sort of how gatekeeping and boundary negotiation occurs. And we'll get into some more personal topics as well around feminism, the experience of being an adult female goth, and all of the experiences that come along with that. So with all of that, let's get into the show. Trey, I believe you actually wanted to open up the discussion this time, please.
Yeah, I did. And it's really a lot of it's just since I've been so steeped in Open Graves, just trying to prep for this, I simply have to start by asking you both, what's your darkness?
How dare you? Did their homework. Oh dear God. So okay, you understand that whole thing. Yeah.
Yes.
For people that don't, that are listening to this, it goes way back to like one of the first quote unquote goth people I ever dated asked me like on the date, like, what is your darkness? You know, as in assuming that we all have something that sort of brought us to this, melancholy, kind of darker shades of life, venues and music that seem to fuel us. And so, so Vesta and I sort of parlayed that into a, we want to find out what each and every one of our guests, like what was the catalyst that drove them towards seeking out the goth realm as well. So that's sort of our little honorary question.
Yeah, it's sort of become a parody of itself too.
Yeah.
But what we really mean by it, I think, is like what is the thing that sort of set you, I don't know, apart, I guess. And it also sort of has to do with, not always, but can have to do with trauma, or just sort of the way that we as a people process trauma a little bit differently and sort of like integrate it maybe. So that's what is your darkness question is really like poking at.
Yeah.
I mean, I find a commonality in people in our world. God, okay, first, right off the bat, do you call it scene?
Yeah, so I'm fine with scene.
Yes.
Scene, subculture,
culture,
community.
Yeah,
community.
I'm a big fan of saying community.
Yeah. All right. I find that people in our community just always have some sort of childhood. I mean, granted, everybody has something, but yeah, like Vesta was saying, to some degree, a little more spice in the casserole, so to speak, brought us to, seeking out the release in the melancholy dark music. Do you want to actually know what each of our darknesses are? Is that, or you just?
I mean, it is legitimately the question, but I mean, it's really up to you how much you want to share. Obviously, you have shared it on your show already, but this is also a different audience, so not everybody who's listening to this has listened to your show, but hopefully that'll change, and we'll get some people to listen to your show as well.
Well, we call it Open Graves for a reason, because we are open books and open graves.
Yes.
I find a lot of people in the goth community are the same way. That was one of my first
You mean about
experiences.
the openness?
Yeah, just one of my first experiences getting to a goth club, riding in a car with someone I hadn't met before. And she told me basically every traumatic thing that ever happened in her life on the way there. And so I was like, okay,
there does seem to be a lighter habit of masking, especially when within the safe space of the community. Obviously, in regular world, we all know how to mask, and some are better than others. But I do feel that with a properly cultivated goth space, a goth social space, those shields can come down, and people are free to be themselves without masking, because we try to foster a minimal judgment space. I can't say judgment free, but I can say minimal judgment space.
Yeah, I think masking is also a really, really layered, interesting word to use, because when we talk about like, oh God, like masking in terms of like neurodivergence in the wild, I think what you're saying is like that can come down when we're around each other, but also like the goth aesthetic is very masky, but in an expressive way, I would say, more than a concealing way.
Yes, it certainly can be. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends how you take it. We'll kind of get into that, but we're already devolving. Heather, what's your darkness, or how did you get into goth? What was your journey into it?
Well, real quick, my darkness, I mean, I call it the trifecta. I had, as a teenager, I was diagnosed with a osteochondroma on my spine, so a tumor when I was 15. And then I had hot water, third-degree burns on my thighs and vaginal area. Very, very attractive. Where I got the nickname Hot Legs. No. But then, yeah, and this is all like adolescence. And then at the same time, I started my career as an anorexic, all at the same time. And I call it the trifecta, but it's, all those things are like, sort of, I mean, everybody I feel, especially in the goth scene, I haven't really met people who have not said that they were bullied or an outcast as a child. I feel like, I mean, granted, maybe all of us were, even the bullies, who knows? But I find that we all have that sort of history, and I certainly did. And then just, feeling completely removed from the mainstream and just not fitting in anywhere and not wanting to be in high school and wanting to just be out on my own. But yeah, so how I found the goth world, well, I was always a fan of The Cure in high school, but I ended up meeting here we go. We call him the Ralph's DJ on on our podcast, but there's this guy, who would keep club flyers in his little pocket apron, and he was cute. I would sort of see him when I'd be all dressed up in my black, and I could tell that he had some edge to him, and so he had slipped me a couple flyers. And I went to like my first club in Long Beach, and I don't know how old I was. I think it was an 18 and older situation, so I must be right around 18. And then, so that was sort of my gateway drug. And then there's this other place called Que Sera that he DJ'd at that I started going to. And that's where like some of our larger clubs, it's like the origin story for Das Bunker. They started there. So from there, I heard about these other places from there, and the rest is history.
Probably important to note before we do that, that for those who are not native to the California area, Ralph's is a supermarket chain.
Oh, shoot. Whoops.
So it adds some nuance to the Ralph's DJ.
For clarifying.
I did live in California for about a year, so I'm familiar with the area a little bit.
Should I say Piggly Wiggly? No.
I actually grew up by a Piggly Wiggly here in Chicago, but we don't have that many of those either anymore.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Vesta, what about you?
Oh, that was way to be so concise, Heather. That was impressive.
I was trying to rein it in.
Yeah. I'm gonna say the origin is more of a question than an answer.
How very
which
goth.
is, well, I know, right? Jesus. which is why was I obsessed with the Addams Family at 7 years old?
Why
Without
not is
being
the answer.
sure. I mean, that's a valid answer too. But it was like without being introduced or prompted. Like I don't. It's hard to say like what drew a 7-year-old into being like this is what's up. Um, and sort of what I realized reflecting as an adult is that the Addams Family really sums up this feeling of alienation, but also security and community. Because they are alienated from, the dominant culture, but they are deeply safe and happy.
Very, very much.
Yeah, and I think I felt some of that with the way that my own like family of origin functioned in the sense that like I was an only child. My parents were kind of former hippies. My mother's a therapist. My dad's an artist. So it was like we had a very like I was a very like cared for child, but it also kind of alienated me from other children. Like I didn't really I associated better with adults from a very, very young age and was a pretty anxious kid. And like hypervigilant and just sort of like aware of like what little gremlins other children are.
You're describing my son right now.
It's funny. Yeah.
Which one, hypervigilant or gremlin?
Anxious, a gremlin, yeah. More friends
all
with
the above.
adults and isolated because he's weird. Yeah.
Cool. Well, yep, you're breeding more goths.
Yep.
We can be bred, I think. So anyway, that was sort of, oh God. And then like I had a sort of phase of trying to assimilate myself and like be a normal, like popular child, which I think actually caused a lot of pain. And I had the typical like middle school mean girls experience in 7th grade, which is just the worst time to be alive. It just is kind of across the board. But I have gratitude for it too, because I feel like I got it out of the way really fast. Like it was just this like tumultuous mean girl upheaval when I was like 13 years old. So a lot of people like don't experience that until later. And it's like, I think harder later.
Yeah.
But then once that went away, once that aspect of my life was like taken away, I found Rocky Horror. And basically Rocky Horror and David Bowie became my whole personality. And I would call that pre-goth. Like that was like my proto-gothness. I wouldn't say that I came to goth until, I don't know, maybe mid high school. But it was definitely through the channel of the Rocky Horror community, which is just eclectic weirdos of like all different varieties. So yes, I was on Sins of the Flesh at the New Art in LA. And that really became my primary community. And I no longer had to like rely on like mean high schoolers to like get my sense of like self and again, community, a big fan of that word. And I was sort of adopted by significantly older friends, and they were sort of able to like channel, like funnel good alternative taste toward me in a way that like, I don't know if I would have been able to come by that on my own just around other teenagers.
Yeah, that's something I always appreciated about the goth scene. That was a similar experience where the older goths were always willing and ready to take me under their wing and like lift me up, you know, because it is like you're saying, I think a lot of us were very isolated and very didn't fit in with a lot of people, and then finding a community. I didn't have a good relationship with my parents, so having older goths that were like, hey, yeah, you can hang out with us, we accept you as you are, and we'll kind of show you what's going on over here is really heartening to find. Heather, let me ask you then, because that was a sort of follow-up I was going to mention, is the idea of why you've stayed goth for so long, and if there were moments where you felt like you needed to move on to other things, move away from goth into other aspects, and how that worked out for you.
Yeah, interesting question. I did move to New York City after college by myself for 5 years. And there at the time was a very, very limited number of goth things to do there for some reason. It was every other kind of club. And so I felt like I had slipped away. I didn't have community there. I didn't know of any other goths in New York. So I feel like that was probably a time that, I was kind of out of it. But then I remember overhearing, like, in a cafe, I overheard like a Sisters song or something, and I was just like, oh my God, I need that dark music right now, because it's, it was anything else like hip hop, R&B, which I do enjoy. I enjoy hip hop and rap. I think a lot of goths do too.
I do.
Yeah, but I just overheard like a song or even like a band that I didn't even know, and I just was like, I need to find somewhere to hear this stuff again. And I think, I think the gateway was when I first moved back, and of all bands, Muse released, I forget which, I might have been their second album or something with Hysteria on it. And I was like, that's it. Like, I need something else besides what I'm being fed. And then I started going out again as soon as I moved back. But yeah, and so staying, quote unquote, staying goth, it always sort of amused me when Vesta asked me to do this podcast with her, because I don't consider myself somebody that maintains the darkness throughout the day. Like, I worked for a TV show for 15 seasons, and I had to, do the corporate deal, and during the day, and then at night obviously was something else. But so I was a little surprised, but it's funny that, like, we've talked about it before, is even in my TV show job, like, people, would call me like Wednesday or Morticia, because not for any good reason. It wasn't like I was wearing, crazy stuff. It just sort of, my palette was always of the darker nature. And so then, once, I just always found myself needing that outlet to counteract the stress and every day of normie land. And to this day, it's gotten even more. Like, I've embraced it even more. For some reason, we're having a little renaissance here in LA. I feel like there's a lot of little clubs sprouting up, including our own.
Hell yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it's
well,
amazing.
Then how did Vesta, what's the story of the podcast? Like, what drove you to want to do the podcast in the first place?
Ooh, solid question. Actually, before I answer that, I just want to say to Heather, the reason I asked you to be my co-host was because you and I, like, get into these, like, really genuine, insightful conversations when we're just, like, hanging out by ourselves. And, like, I felt like that's the dynamic that I wanted to come out with doing a project like this. I had sort of set out with this idea back when I had, like, a normal person office job. And my boss, who is also a friend and also is sort of a closet corporate goth, I had talked about doing it with him because he and I also, like, would get into these, like, really intense discussions about why we're like this. But it just became a little bit too, like, this is going to get fucked up if I do this with my boss. Because I was getting, like, way too, like, self-censoring, and, like, that's, like, defeats the whole purpose of this. Like, if I can't talk about, like, that I was, like, drunk at an after hours at 3 a.m. on a weeknight, like, I shouldn't be sharing that with my boss.
Yeah.
And it actually took me until developing this idea for me to find you guys, because I was just sort of trying to, like, put out feelers and see if this had been done yet. And I think that we have a very similar, like, mission statement.
Yeah.
Which is really to, like, kind of, like, critically examine a thing that I think gets taken for granted a lot. Like, like, the subculture / community / genre sometimes just, like, it, like, is this, like, living thing that functions, but, like, isn't as, like, self-critical as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
And I can tell like from what you guys do that's a thing that you guys really embrace as well. And I sort of just wanted to like give a voice to like what this experience is like and why we're having it without just like coasting through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were always my favorite conversations at house parties in the kitchen at 3 a.m. when I'm drunk off absinthe, just deep, philosophical questions.
I also felt very protective of our world as well. Like I wanted to I don't know, I guess I'm privy to some, I don't know about you guys, but we have a lot of DJ issues where people are sort of pitted against each other. And there was some imploding that happened with some of our venues and clubs. And being that I love them so much, it's disheartening. And so part of wanting to do this as well was to preserve our community to some degree and give people a chance to talk about themselves. We've had quite a few DJs on our show, but just to sort of explain themselves and also to sort of bring back people to love it, to remember that why they loved it. You know what I mean? Sort of quell the drama and the sort of hatred and competition that I feel like happens. I mean, it's not just the goth world, but given these spaces are so important to us because we don't have many others.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, then that's a great transition to my question about Obelisk, because that's the joint club night that you both run. And I was just wondering, have you been promoters before? Similar question, how did Obelisk come to be?
Obelisk actually started as my birthday party.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It was very happenstancy. And now we're coming up on 3 years in March. So the bar that we do it at is called Risky Business, and it's in North Hollywood. And the owner is a friend of mine, and he's a Burning Man person, so it's mostly like a Burning Man people's bar. Which, if that means anything, it means it's chaotic. This is a chaotic operation. They were having it's because it's so chaotic and in a weird location, they were like struggling with their business for a while, and my friend who was the owner just was like, "Do you want to do a night here?" And I was like, "Okay." Like I didn't have to actually put any energy or effort into doing this thing. It just sort of he was like, "Do you want to do this thing to bring people in?" And I was like, "Okay." So we did it for my birthday, which is also John Jackson is also Pisces, so it was sort of became our joint birthday party.
Okay.
And we thought it was going to be just a one-off, but we titled it Obelisk in case it became a thing, but we didn't really have a solid it really evolved a lot since its inception. There was originally pool tables, one of which is gone now. The back second room was not open for a whole year. It was very much this divey bar party for quite a while before it became what it is now.
With basically no dance floor. It started off with basically people trying to dance in between two pool tables. If you could about how fun that would be.
I've definitely been to those venues.
Yeah.
I know that. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Didn't stop us though.
That's why you dance on the pool tables, but yeah.
Right. Yep. But yeah, so the one I think great thing about the setup of the bar, even though it's not a traditional quote unquote club, would be the fact that it does kind of force people to intermingle and socialize given the juxtaposition of the furniture. There's a giant bar, like a rectangle bar with seats all the way around it, and there's not a lot of space to pass by. And so you're basically in each other's face as you walk by, and you can't help but socialize. It has a little smoking patio alcove out front, which everybody wants for some reason. There's free parking everywhere, which is also an anomaly here. And then we did finally, they had a back room, and I had been pestering the owner for a long time trying to get that room open because I wanted a dance room. People would always complain about there's nowhere where to dance. And so finally we've nudged him into letting us help him clear out that room. And then it just kind of, I don't know what happened, but he got a burlesque troupe in and needed to sort of up the game, and then voila, it's empty, it's all ready to go. And so, it went from there. And we tried the second room thinking like, is this going to be like too empty? Like, are people going to fill it? Like, what are we doing? Like, now we have 4 DJs instead of like 3, and 3 for a room is that's a lot. So now we have 4, 2 and 2, and we were shocked, pleasantly surprised just how people just embraced it and loved the fact we could have 2 different styles of music and they can go back and forth. And
it's also always felt more like a party than a club, and I think that that's kind of a unique thing that I value a lot, in the sense we also get to be kind of silly. Like, we have all these theme nights that are just like, who gives a fuck? Like, if we're gonna have fun, like, we don't need to be like as serious about what goth means. Like, we had like a Tarantino theme night for like no reason, like
yeah.
Like, that's not goth.
I love the theme nights,
but it's fun, and that's just the whole point.
Yeah.
People love a theme night. Like, they love to get dressed up. But I was
fully barefoot. Yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention our lovely cohorts. So we have DJ Jackson, we have DJ Vodka House, who's our host, as well as co-host with Vesta, and she also DJs. And then we have DJ Tenebrae, and then my DJ name is Heatherette.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so Tenebrae and Jackson have been DJing.
I was gonna make the warm comment.
Yes.
To it.
But yeah, we're loving it, and I still give Vesta endless props for, like, she was in charge of my DJ career, basically. She's like, do you want to spin for my birthday? And I was like, hey, I've been taking DJ lessons. Over the pandemic, I took a course and won a scholarship to some sort of thing, and was DJing in my bedroom. And she's like, do you want to try it? And like, the rest. And now I'm like DJing alternative. I've DJed at Bar Sinister. I've DJed at Chamber. If anyone's in LA in December, I'm DJing Bar Sinister again on December 20th. If anyone's in LA then, would love to have you. But yeah, so it's one of the happiest things in my life right now is Obelisk.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
This podcast,
that's great. Yeah.
So let me ask you a hard-hitting journalistic question about theme nights. Why do we keep doing goth prom when we've all been out of high school for the last 30 years?
We've never done a goth prom, but however,
we have not. Although the alternative kind of is goth prom.
Thank you. One of the clubs, for the listeners, is it's called The Alternative, and it's at a VFW. You all know what that is?
Yeah. That's
okay. So they have like the hardcore military bar with the cheapest drinks you will ever find, by the way. But then it's shared with, like, just picture your high school gym cut in half.
It's a rec room. It's straight up a rec room.
It's a rec room. And but people rent out that room from time to time, and DJ Leo Dragon is my co-DJ, and he produces the night, and so it's his hookup. But he does a goth prom. But yeah, but it is basically a goth sock hop every night. Anytime we're doing it. But yeah, good question. I mean, we need more themes. If you have any, throw them out.
I'm now envisioning bat themed poodle skirts at this point.
Oh man. Oh God.
Please. I think the goth prom thing does actually speak to, like, our Peter Pan complex, though.
Yeah.
I think there is something there. Like, I know that question was like kind of tongue in cheek, but I'm like, no, there's a real answer to that. And I think it does have to do with our refusal to be adults, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think another aspect is that prom in today's society is one of the few events that people are just expected to, like, really up their game sartorially. It's your experience to really dress up. So, I mean, a goth night, a regular goth night, everybody dresses up. But if you want them to step it up a notch, you got to do something like that. And we don't seem to talk about balls and masquerades and things like that as much. Where prom, I think people understand that that's the intention of prom, is when a bunch of people who dress a certain way really sort of shift into a much more formal, elegant, high, I don't know.
Class it up a bit.
I actually I want to speak more to that. I don't know that this was supposed to go down this tangent because I'm like taking it way too seriously.
Tangents are awesome.
I think prom was also a really alienating experience for most goth teens. So maybe there's something about reclaiming a thing that like is supposed to be this like positive coming of age experience that maybe wasn't available for whatever reason. In a similar way that I think a lot of people in like the queer communities have that similar relationship to what like prom and stuff like that's like a typical coming of age community thing was like maybe not available. Because like there was also, I'm having a high school flashback now. I did actually go to, I think it was my junior year, a gay prom instead of my school's prom because it was this event that was designed for kids who like literally were not allowed to bring gay dates to their own school prom. And I was there with a gay male friend. I guess ironically looking like a straight date. But we did that instead of going to, we didn't even go to school together. We did that instead of going to our own school's proms. And it was actually just as lame as a regular prom. It was like not super different or fun. But I think that there's something interesting about like the queer experience and the goth teen experience that like maybe draws us to like a little bit of that Peter Pan reclamation thing.
Yeah.
Reclaim it and make a party out of the pain, you know, kind of like
what a line, Heather. Make a party out of the pain.
No, don't quote me.
It's our next theme night. Everybody's a Cenobite. Yeah. I did want to ask about the music because we've had a few people from LA on the show before, and there's a big industrial scene, there's a big death rock scene. I just was doom scrolling TikTok a few hours ago, and someone made a video complaining that the LA goth clubs play too much normie music like Dragula instead of goth music. So
I would love to never hear Dragula again.
Oh God, no. We have this sort of transitional bar. The night is called Bar Sinister. It's one of the nights that I have DJ'd, but it is right on the cusp of Hollywood Boulevard, and it brings a lot of tourists in. And so I think to cater to everyone, there is a lot of like Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie sort of played, you know, for that. Like I don't think we consider it a goth club, but a lot of people like that. But that's how it would be labeled. Or sinister, but as far as the music goes, that's all over the place, right? Like they do a dark wave night, they do, but I don't know what it used to be when I used to go there back in the olden days. Was a little more goth, but the stuff now is it's got some techno, it's got some you know, underground, or what is it, underworld, like Prodigy kind of sounding songs.
Bar Sinister is definitely the most like mainstream of the goth nights, meaning that not only like in the music that is played, but in like its sort of popularity and accessibility is like it does very much. God, this is such a weird topic.
I mean, it's definitely the one that those of us outside of the area have heard of too.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
So my ex-partner is the owner of Bar Sinister.
Oh. Okay.
So, and we still go to Bordner's every Wednesday.
You had a great line in one of the episodes. I don't remember which one. I think it was one of the earlier ones, but you said something to the effect of, we've all just tacitly agreed to be in the same room as our exes until we die, which I think was
that definitely
really
sounds
funny.
like a thing I've said.
Yeah, I mean, you had a whole episode about that phenomenon.
Yeah, it's a big topic for us, I think, because it's such a
incestuous.
It's an incestuous like bottle episode of a community. So I don't know. It's a mixed bag, the shade that I have about Bar Sinister, but also the appreciation too. Because Bordner's is a really important staple in our community, even if I do have shade to throw at Bar Sinister specifically.
I think everyone I've talked to has shade to throw at Bar Sinister.
I know, right?
But
But it is
people
important, and it's our longest running
Yeah.
thing.
really,
It's especially since Release the Bats
Right.
closed.
Yeah.
and
probably
we don't really have venues that are willing to give local goth bands a chance.
mm-hmm.
They have a stage in the patio, and they have, for Bar Sinister, they have two bands usually that play Saturday night, and as well as dancing in the main room. And so yeah, and then you have a chill bar next door. You have chaos in in the club room. You have Purgatory, which is BDSM, in the balcony. And so it's I don't know. What I think is, like, you can tell that, at least, I mean, Vesta might disagree, but the owners seem to really care about the scene, in allowing that to happen, and to sort of serve it in that way. Do you agree or no?
No comment.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
what's Obelisk's sort of ethos about music and what you guys pick?
Well,
As a DJ, would you like to speak to that, Heather?
It's death rock, dark wave, goth, and industrial. Like, that's our four main pillar. But
Post-punk.
it's post-punk, but what I like, it's all over the place.
It's eclectic, and I think that's like what we, at least, I don't know, as I'm the only member of our team that is not a DJ. But I think being able to sort of cultivate a space that's like, I feel like everyone is playing with what they want to hear, and like what they feel is maybe like a need that's not getting met out there otherwise. Not that we're playing like super obscure B-sidesy stuff. Sometimes we are.
Yeah.
But that it's like for our own joy.
Yeah.
What did he say? Party in the pain. What?
Make a party from the pain.
Make a party from the pain.
And then it's more like, as you listen to the DJs, you're getting a feel for what the DJ what really inspires them. They don't feel like they're playing from here's the top goth industrial hits that everybody is request. It's not hugely request driven where you're always hearing whatever the overplayed song of the month is.
Sure.
You're definitely hearing an insight into each individual DJ's personality.
Yeah. And I know there's some promoters that might disagree with that ethos, because, your job is to read the crowd. But I feel like we have our moments. We have the nostalgic moments and the anthem moments, and then you have the obscure trip hop or ethereal stuff that never gets recycled out. And yeah, and so I think in theory we're supposed to have the back room be harder, faster music. We'll just put it that way, and then the front being a little more swirly. But as being one of the DJs that's in the back, I play what I want.
Yeah. And you guys also tend to rotate on different months, so it's not even like a set. The roles set. And I love that, like, because I know the four of you so well as people, I can tell who's on without looking at who's on.
I bet you can. I bet you can.
It is cute.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say that definitely sounds like exactly my style of club, because I'm constantly wanting to hear different things and interesting things, and I love being surprised. I sometimes frustrate the DJs that like requests. Like Sarah will ask me whenever we see each other, "Hey, do you have any requests?" I'm like, "No. If I had a request, I'd just stay at home and play what I wanted. I want to hear things that I didn't even know I was missing. When I hear new things and different things, and that I'm not usually hearing them, to be fair, at most club nights, because it is still very request driven, and most people in a request driven environment do continually want to hear a relatively slim subset of the grand umbrella that is our subcultural musical oeuvre. But I love just being surprised. That's also why I like to be at the very beginning and the very end of most club nights, just because that's when the DJs seem to have the most freedom to play whatever the fuck they want, and not because nobody's there. So it has two benefits for me. One, I have a lot of dance floor space to chew up, so I'll use that. and they're usually playing things that are more interesting. And if I'm the only one out there and I've been going long enough, they know what I like to dance to as well. So I feel like I'm catered to. I have the space to express myself, and it's a little bit weirder stuff that's not quote unquote club friendly.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you both dance?
I am a big
Trey
dancer.
certainly does. Yeah.
Dani
I'm very
does
self-conscious,
dance,
so
but yeah.
not too much, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heather's the dance fiend.
I'd rather dance than socialize.
I'm a big dancer, but I'm a picky dancer, so I can't say I dance for the majority of any given night. A song has to
I'm a
really
picky
speak
one
to
too.
me.
Yep, Vesta's super picky too. You
And
guys
the problem
can
is,
together.
yeah, the more quote unquote danceable the song is, more likely the less I'm interested in it.
I agree with you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that tracks.
I like weird, broken beat, confusing music. It's got a 4 on the floor. I'm out.
All I need to say, Vesta, Sebastian.
Yes, that is one of my favorite dance songs.
It's hard. There's no rhythm, no beat, whatever.
What are you saying about me?
I'm a big fan of Killing Game, and it never gets played.
Huh?
Ooh.
Killing Game, Skinny Puppy.
Oh, okay.
That's one of my favorite dance songs.
Very
and it's not an easy dance song necessarily, but it's very fun. A lot of space to express yourself, which is the main thing. I don't like the dance song to be hammering me with, you will dance now, 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 now. It's like, no, I want space
I fully
to
feel
interpret.
that. Yeah, that's very fucking goth of you.
And let me ask you both this. Now I'm interviewing you.
Yeah.
Whenever you go to a club, how do you feel? And because I'm Vesta knows how I feel of when the goth DJ plays half a song and mixes into the next. Very, very what's the
leading
word?
Question, Heather?
Well, I'm just curious because there are some newbies that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's a very goth.
It's not a very goth standard thing. So it's not something I'm used to, but it really depends on what their music choices are, because I love a challenge. And if they keep changing the music on me and I have to keep dancing to what the music says to me, I'm constantly having to shift how I'm dancing. And I find that to be, in certain circumstances, a lot of fun. I'm not that precious about hearing the entirety of a song. I do kind of prefer that, but I'm also, outside of my goth life, I'm a huge fan of turntablism and mashups and things like that.
Which you don't get a lot of at goth clubs.
No,
you don't. But it wasn't at a goth club, but a really fun dance experience I had was several years ago. It's like, I think it was a year or two before the pandemic. I went on my own to Austin, just traveling on my own, stayed at a hostel, met a couple of folks at the hostel, and we just sort of bar hopped along the main drag, which is just a bunch of normie bars. We found this little off the beaten path bar that had a DJ that tended to lean more towards a lot of mixing different musics. And I got into this sort of dancing groove moment, and I became kind of the only one on the dance floor. And I felt that me and the DJ were kind of having this moment together, and they were just constantly throwing different things at me to see how I would respond to it. And so it would be jumping from Michael Jackson to Prince to David Bowie to, Parliament Funkadelic. It was just sort of all over the place. And I was having the fucking time of my life. And I just stayed on the dance floor for a very long time. But I didn't feel like I was getting tired because I was just constantly being engaged with, oh, they're playing something different. I need to shift and express what that music is speaking to me. So
okay.
I know it's not the same. And when I DJ'd, I play the whole song. So I was not one who jumped around, but I enjoy both types. But it really just depends on the style of music.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sorry, unrelated. It's just funny to me to have 4 podcasters on a podcast because we're literally never going to stop talking.
Yeah, this can go on for years.
Okay, well, let me switch gears a little bit. Sort of related. This whole conversation we've been having about clubs and concerts and things is one of the things that I love about your show is because you are both really hooked into the local scene and you bring that into your episodes. And I think a lot of content online, not just podcasts, but YouTube, TikTok, whatever, is missing a lot of that informed opinion about local community. I think especially a lot of the larger goth YouTubers and things like that don't really go out very often. And so I guess I wanted to ask sort of before, after doing the podcast, how connected you are to the online goth scene, because people make a lot out of the division between those, and sort of what your perspective on the pitfalls, the benefits of either the digital or the physical goth community are.
I would say that if we were more tapped into the online goth community, maybe we'd have a better listenership, because we're not good at that. We're like super not good at it.
Okay. Stupid question. Can you define online goth community to me?
Well, you just mentioned like goth YouTubers and TikTok, and like I don't even fuck with that at all. Like I don't even know.
Are we talking like live journal shit? Or are we talking?
No, not
well, I was an
and
LJ
now we're
kid,
dating
for sure.
ourselves.
Yeah.
It's all nice.
Okay, I think you've answered the question. Yeah.
Bam.com.
Yeah. No, we are very, I think,
Bam.com.
so in tune with our local in-person community. To the point that like I actually wish I had more of like a skill set to be more online engaged, just to like get our stuff and our voices out there.
It's a full-time job.
Jackson runs our Obelisk Instagram, and he does a fucking great job.
Oh yeah,
because he has whatever that little like inner social media demon is that I don't have. Like I do our Open Graves Instagram, and even that is just like, oh god, I'm terrible at it.
I hate it. Not your Instagram. I hate doing Instagram. Yeah.
I also was wondering about the online community in a couple ways, because like speaking of Scary Sarah, like the Twitch community over the pandemic and everything like that felt different as well, as far as like goth communities. And I know people were doing, meetups online and whatnot, because we couldn't go anywhere. But that, I mean, does that still exist? I mean, are people still listening to music online? And
Twitch is still a thing, not to the degree that it was, but like Rocky still does a Twitch, Tenebrae still does Twitch once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
But different. I don't know who's the listenership now, because like who's actually just chilling out.
Yeah. That was the difference, is that everyone who would go out was now on Twitch.
Exactly.
And a lot of the terminally online goths, I don't think showed up to that as much. But
that's interesting.
No, I think it does cater to the those with the responsibilities in life that prevent them from going out, whether they've decided to adult too hard and spawn and things like that. It does give those folks an outlet, a chance to sort of experience it. I know there's a lot of club nights. I think Nocturna, I don't know if it still does, but it was continuing to Twitch stream even when they were going back to live events, and they just had a camera on Nocturna, and we're just Twitch streaming that. And I think that's a really great way of doing it, and I would really like to see more clubs do that, because it gives you an ability to sort of sample what different scenes are like, what different communities are like, especially if you want to go and visit and kind of get an idea of what's a good place to go, what are you going to expect there. And I'd really love to see more of that. But no, Dani's
actually
very
Rocky
engaged
was doing
online.
that at Bar Sinister like immediately post pandemic, but I think that kind of died down.
Fractune still does for Blue Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I'm just like having this thought right now, thanks to you bringing this up, but like I wonder if Tenebrae would want to do that from Obelisk, because he has a Twitch channel.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's funny
ideas right now.
Yeah.
Completely useless anecdote, but I knew about Tenebrae because I watched Alexander Ward's Twitch, who I watched through LA by Night, and he mentioned Tenebrae, And
Oh,
that was like, oh, so Alexander knows about the goth scene, and then this is
oh yeah.
that's
Alex and I have been
yeah,
friends for like 12 or so years.
hell
He's
yeah.
a fixture. He
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
in.
No, he's
That's
a
what I
close
learned about
friend.
Davey
He's
Havoc
a really
too
good
when
one.
you had him on your show. That
Yeah,
was
Oh,
fun. Yeah.
yeah,
seen him
he's a very interesting person.
for years.
Yeah.
Just comes in and out on his own.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the big one, uh,
Oh.
which is I don't want to just ask what is goth. I think that's too large of a question. I try to frame it in the sense of saying like what elements need to be present to give rise to goth, which is also kind of a
Mhm.
leading question because it's the way I look at things. But uh, I want to hear your opinions and then maybe kind of break down a few of the different aspects of that. But through the process of being goth, what would you say goth is? What creates goth?
Yeah, that is a big one. Um, and was also really part of the impetus of starting our podcast was like because it's such an elusive thing to define,
Mm,
that's why we can keep talking about it with different people like until we die.
hmm
Because we don't like if I had like a here's my like one paragraph answer, then like this podcast would be boring.
mm,
Hmm.
hmm
You know, and like so I think some of that sort of elusiveness is actually like integral to it. Like
mm,
you can say darkness, but then it's like, well, what does that actually mean?
hmm
Like it's so I think we all kind of tend to stumble to describe it.
Hmm.
I wish I could remember what Archon said. We
I
had
was just gonna say, like,
yeah,
he
yeah,
defined
yeah.
it
Our
perfect.
friend Archon, who is basically my gay boyfriend, was a guest on our podcast, and I feel like at the end of that episode, he just like said something fucking magical, and I can't remember what it
I
was,
I know.
did
but I was
listen
like,
to
"Oh
that
my God, you did it!
episode.
Like you did it!"
I listened to that episode. I'm trying to think of what it was. I know you guys mentioned at one point, but I don't know if it was Archon who said it, that goth is the sort of passion, anger expression directed inward rather than outward.
Hmm.
That
And I
sounds
know that came
right.
up on the podcast at one point, whether it was Archon
mm,
or not. And I've always
Yeah,
felt that way, so that definitely resonated with me as a way of distinguishing goth darkness from perhaps other subcultures who also claim a portion of darkness for their own.
yeah, that actually sounds like a thing that I might have said because that feels very familiar.
It may have been.
Because the way that I think have categorized like the difference between the way that like for instance like goth and punk get lumped together in a way that's like
Hmm.
sometimes appropriate and sometimes not is that punk has a very like outward energy
Hmm.
which can also read as masculine energy whereas goth has a very inward which is also read as femme and that has a lot to do with like oh God like the androgyny present in
Hmm.
gothness is like I actually would say that embracing the feminine is an integral part of
mm.
what
Yeah.
goth
I'm in
and
the
like capital G Gothic means.
yeah, I'm in the middle of your
'Cause
shaving episode, and you've been talking about that a lot.
oh God, I love that you brought up the shaving episode. I kind of
I think
forgot about that.
I think there
We've
has
said
to
a lot
be.
of things, huh?
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna start at episode 1 and listen to every single one of yours. Um,
That's fine.
so you heard it first, right here. There's got to be some sort of beauty element of the darkness too. That's how I look at
Hmm.
it. In not only that, but it's a combination of that with the music. For me, what I'm feeling inside the music matches, and also allows me to channel it and expel it if I need to,
Mhm,
not only physically but mentally. And
mhm,
then additionally, I think one of the things we talk about nonstop on our podcast is memento mori, and
Hmm.
the
mhm,
idea of the fact that we are well aware we're all going to die. In fact, we've thrown a party for ourselves in a sort of a way. That element of seizing the day and living
mhm,
to the fullest because of the knowledge of death. There's a strong element of that thrown in, and I think because our American society is so taboo to really deal with death in a visceral way. I think that part appeals to me on so many levels, because whatever spectrum I am, I'd like to know things ahead of time. And so it's sort of like I'm already processing that before it's happened. It sort of gives me like agency in that way.
It gives me anxiety in that way, but yeah, I can see the other side of that too.
Oh, okay.
Why not both?
Yeah.
I think that there's also like an existential. Oh, sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Please.
Existential.
An existential quality that's ingrained in this, of like that's sort of what I think has set a lot of us apart from polite society. Is it like you're sort of like aware of the void in a way that it's like you can't look away from it, and there's this sort of confusion around like, why is everyone ignoring what this like absurd reality is? And to sort of be able to lean in, I'm going to call it like lean into the void. And sort of, instead of being in denial about like this, just like the absurdity of fucking everything. And like, that's why like leaning into, I guess the aesthetics of death is like a way of sort of making yourself cozy with this kind of otherwise scary reality.
That reminds me of Lacan's concept of the real. That's very similar.
Yes.
Well, okay. So let me see if we can. I want to try and break down a few of these components, because, yeah, the way I do think about it is that, as you have both sort of been describing, it's not really one thing is necessary and sufficient to be goth. It sort of emerges out of this resonance between things. We had a past guest, Genevieve, who described it as like a rose, and there's all these different petals that make up the rose. So maybe
the thorns.
And the thorns. I know a few of the thorns.
And the fertilizer.
I know some of the fertilizer too. Yeah. The first thing I thought about was this concept of goth as a mindset, sort of a particular way of viewing the world. So I was curious what your thoughts were on that idea.
Yeah, I find there's some not only subversiveness in goth, but there's some humor in the fact that we're dressed for a funeral, like, or whatever, like, take that, society. So to me, that sort of influences it. And I forgot the question.
I'm gonna quote Susie and the Creatures in response to that, is that death is high camp. So like, camp is like, I think, actually a really integral part of goth and the gothic.
I agree.
In a way that I think can get overlooked by the mainstream. And if like we're being looked at and interpreted as taking ourselves as seriously as they think, then it is like, if we think about like SNL's goth talk, like that, like, as like objectively funny as that is, I do love goth talk, but it also was like, I think, a huge misunderstanding of like the seriousness, or like the lack of like self-awareness, maybe, is I think that we are actually a very self-aware people.
Yeah, I think
it's sort of taking the piss. We know we're the joke. We are our own joke.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the distinctions between.
But I don't know that comedy community knew that.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's extremely romantic and fantasy oriented as well. Not only dealing with the fantasy of the inevitable, but sort of being able to present yourself with this hard exterior, and then inside you're completely the opposite, is what I find usually with most people in this.
Yes, we are very squishy people.
I actually like one of the quotes. I think, Vesta, it was from your lips. You said goth is just neurodivergent death drag. I think
I did. Actually, did you say that? Did I say that?
I don't know.
It might have been you. I don't know.
But
yeah, that is the title of one of our episodes, and it actually is, I think, the title of my. This is a tangent. That I guess I'm going to take us down. It might be the title of my thesis that I'm working on.
Oh, very nice.
So
expand.
And this, yeah, thank you. But this question is really useful to me because I'm actually really trying so hard to answer it in this thesis project because it is so elusive. So I'm in grad school right now and I'm becoming a therapist. I am a practicing therapist.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. It's hard. Turns out grad school is hard. And I'm very stoked for this thesis project, but it's also like, oh God, like ruining my life. So it is about neurodivergence in
You're
the
basically
goth
writing a
community.
book. Yeah.
I'm kind of yeah, no pressure. But it really is just about what I've observed and experienced in a way that I don't think has been written about before. Like there's tons of like writing about the goth community in terms of like music and fashion. And I really don't feel like, and there's tons of like scholarly writing about neurodivergence and like what that looks like. And there's not really any crossover of like, why am I witnessing this Venn diagram that like nobody's talking about? And I know you mentioned earlier that you consider yourself on the autism spectrum. I think Heather is too. I'm in like the ADHD realm of shit.
I also have that.
And most of us are like, it's really like we all find each other. And sort of the way I've been trying to like describe it and sum it up is like this sort of capital O otherness, which I did notice you mention on your podcast, and I really appreciated that because I feel like I'm like always harping on the the capital O otherness, and that to me the definition of subculture is feeling alienated and then finding community out of that alienation. So they're actually like alienation and community are interdependent with each other.
Yeah.
That check out?
Yeah. You'll have no shortage of participants if you need to do ethnographic research. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, no, seriously. And it's been a that's been my undertaking. But it is sort of a way of sort of assessing and describing like how integral that otherness is to all of us finding each other. I think that's actually a huge part of like the ethos of not just like the community in terms of how we interact with each other, but like the art itself, like the content and the feeling of the music. And well, it kind of goes back to like the Addams Family feeling of like, can we also like admit that Wednesday and Gomez are probably both on the autism spectrum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought I was thinking, which version of the Addams Family was I watching? But you okay there? Sorry, my cat's making weird noises. I said that to my wife not that long ago. Just the way that Gomez communicates or just the way that they kind of take things literally. And I was like, that's very autism coded because I run into the same issues trying to talk to people and taking them incorrectly because I'm taking them at face value.
Yeah, I think, and then Wednesday and Gomez, I think, have that sort of almost opposite type of autism, where it's like he's very just like passionate and direct, and she's a little more like detached.
Yeah.
And then I would say Morticia is not, and I think that's part of why I identify with her so much, is like she's a little bit more neurotypical, but identifies so well with like that's her people.
Yeah, she's a very balanced member of that family. She's kind of the glue that
I can just desire to be Morticia.
So I did have a quick question about, going all the way back to your initial origin. Which Addams Family was your introduction?
It was the 90s films. I got to like the 60s TV show a little later.
Okay. I started with the 60s TV show. I wasn't old enough to see it.
Yeah, so Angelica Houston is my Morticia.
That's a good Morticia. Probably the best Morticia.
I find the Morticia generally stays, and this is probably speaks to her character as the very sort of middle ground, but she's, in my opinion, changed the least in all of the incarnations, save for Wednesday. And I have some issues.
Oh, I have some hot takes about that that I do not even want to get into.
With the mother-daughter interaction that is the core part of it, because I just finished the second season.
Yeah. I couldn't even get through it, dude.
I couldn't get through it either. Let's do a spin-off Addams Family podcast and we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. I did enjoy it, but no, I have my problems. But yeah, I was just curious which Adams was your origin.
Yeah, it was the 90s ones that are the most like at my core.
Yeah.
Have you seen the
Okay.
90s one that came after the first two that had a whole different cast and was terrible? I'm trying to
Yes, I
remember
did,
who.
but not until my adult life.
It's
Yeah,
bad. I watched it
it's
the other day.
bad.
It's not good.
Also, the Broadway musical, bad.
It has Tim Curry in it, and
I
it's bad.
know, which like you'd think he would be a great
Yeah.
Gomez. And
Yeah.
yet,
Well, okay, so let's
anyway, that was a tangent.
okay, well, let's talk about the romance a little bit too, because that was another question. Because for me, in the early, a pillar of what goth was when I was learning what goth was in the early 2000s was romanticism, which was sort of seen through the lens of goth being more of like a cerebral community, but there was a big focus on literature, especially vampires. Can't underestimate the influence of vampires in the 90s and the early 2000s, even though it's not really a thing as much anymore. But it was almost like, required reading to have read Poe and Shelley and Stoker.
Yeah.
So what does that romanticism part of goth mean to you?
I would say it's integral in the sense of like, I mean, this is such like a catchphrase. I'm like capital O otherness, capital G Gothic, but like the capital G Gothic, like we know what I mean when I say that.
Mm-hmm.
Is like I do feel like the romantic literature aspect is deeply important because that is sort of the spawn of like the ethos of the music genre, like, you know, a century before that even happened. And I don't know, I guess I'm actually grateful that that part did make its way into the mainstream in the sense of like I had to read Dracula and Frankenstein in like 10th grade,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like the picture of Dorian Gray, which I think like the crossover with dandyism and the Gothic gets a little bit like pushed aside somehow, but like Goths are essentially dandies too. So I have a big obsession with dandyism. I have a tattoo of Oscar Wilde on my back. I've got the Addams Family on my side. Like um it's kind of all one thing. And yeah, and I guess we do kind of lean in a cerebral direction generally. That's maybe not true across the board. Some people kind of
Nothing
are
is.
in it.
Nothing is.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Like some people I think are in it for like the party and debauchery of it. But it's like if you sort of mix party and debauchery with intellectualism, you get dandyism. And
fair. Yeah. The salon culture, the 19th century salon culture.
yeah, totally. And I think we are sort of in a sense trying to always emulate that or like the dark side of that. And this might be a little bit of a tangent, but that just makes me think of like I think that goth has a lot of roots in glam, like Bowie's more of an origin story.
Very much. Yep.
They like I feel like it gets attributed to like punk or like the Doors or something as like the origin, but I really feel like if you desaturate the colors on David Bowie, you get Peter Murphy.
Well, yes. Yeah. And also I think post-punk is really sort of an amalgamation of what was happening in the 70s, which was punk, glam, and a lot of sort of Afro-Caribbean influences with the diaspora. And so that's where post-punk comes from. And then, of course, goth gleaned in or spun off of that, taking, focusing on sort of the darker aesthetic, the romanticism and stuff. A lot of, frustrated art students coming out and taking their college art stuff and getting tired of punk's insistence that things have to be big and dumb and loud and just a couple of chords.
Well, a lot of the intellectualism of that in England came out of the fact that they had free college, and a lot of those bands were doing art college stuff, and so there was a lot of thought about neo-Marxism and whatever making. I mean, that's early post-punk, pre-goth stuff, but I think that kind of bled through as well. Yeah,
can't deny obviously the intellectual, cerebral side of goth, and I look at like Dickens and whatnot from it being sort of a romantic, and his way of writing was like showing the good and the bad at the same time. So I think, and I feel like that's what we do as a community. but the romanticism to me, or just the romance and sensuality of goth is, I'm just thinking at a like texture, is what really drew me to it viscerally, like the sound of it and getting lost in the romance. It seems like there was a lot of the songs were all about these desperate, unrequited love kind of situations, and people, even like Joy Division types where it's, you have somebody dying for their loved one. But yeah, so that sort of sensuality I think is really, but I was going to even say like the old Dracula trope to me is so, I mean, it's, you have the biting one's neck and like just the romance of that. And I mean, that I think translates not only through the aesthetic, but, somehow to our emotional draw. I don't know. But to me, yeah. So there's no denying, I'm probably not explaining it well, but there's that sensuality, romance of either the sound of the music and the way that we court each other. I don't know. There's
the way we enact, our
yeah.
There's obviously a big difference between Gothic literature and goth, but like both of you have said, goth pulls from those sort of tropes. I mean, romanticism as a philosophy was a reaction against like rationalism. And so those Gothic tropes of like the existential questioning, talking about death, as you both said, like the specter of the past, and just those undefinable qualities of human experience, sort of wrapped up in this, the hedonism and all that stuff sort of creates that lens, I guess, going back to a mindset and what a goth mindset is, this way of seeing and experiencing and acting in the world. Yeah.
I feel like the lyrics to she and I are both poets. And so lyrics to me are extremely important. And the lyricism in the songs are just, it's so sensual and so poetic that separates it from mainstream music. To me, that sets the scene for romance. But
I mean, boom, 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 I want you in my room is not romantic?
I want to fuck you like an animal.
Hail Empress, maybe something like that. Yeah.
But, anyway.
Yeah.
I did notice on your recent episode, your guest was talking about like the conundrum of goth being conflated with emo by the mainstream. And sort of, I know we all just like eye rolled at the same time. That was beautiful, actually. But I think what Heather was just saying, like, I think speaks to like why they're like genuinely unrelated, besides from like literally wearing black, like that's kind of it, is that emo lacks that exact romanticism that Heather was describing. It is like I'm like not actually well versed in emo music, so it's probably a huge judgment on my part, but that's fine.
I am fairly well versed, more than I'd like to, and it's more along the lines of I love you so much I'm going to kill myself, or you've left me and I'm going to kill myself.
Yes,
a lot of killing
exactly
myself.
What I was. Yes. Okay. So we're agreeing at least. So I'm not totally off base. Is that like it feels like just like a sort of loud complaint, as opposed to like this sort of like dwelling, like God has like a dwelling aspect to it that is like part of its romanticism.
Yes.
As opposed to just like woe, because it's not just a woe is me. There's like a
woe is us.
Like if you're gonna woe is us. Actually, that's
and why
lovely.
Is woe and why is
and
us?
why is woe? Exactly.
And woe.
My computer.
The way I kind of look at the distinction between emo and goth, and I think kind of like you, Vesta, I'm not that well versed in emo. I kind of skipped. I got into goth before emo was a thing, and I was not really paying attention to music that much when emo was at its ascendancy. And I didn't get back into things until after. But I mean, both goth and emo tend to have a lot of parallels in that they talk about love lost frequently.
Sure.
There's a lot of broken relationships, love lost, things like that. And I find goth tends to focus on this sort of sad wistfulness for it. It's not necessarily that angry about it. It misses it. It maybe lionizes the relationship that was. It longs for it. It's this longing, this slow thing. And I feel that emo tends to dwell in a bitterness about it, about being wrong by
I agree with you.
a former lover. And that's how they express the pain that the fracturing of relationship evokes in everybody. And that's just how those two different scenes evoke it.
Yeah, goth is more of a sensual rumination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm going to be a huge cliche of ourselves and quote The Cure. But there's actually a really great essay that I've also been using for this project by Lauren Goodlad, who's a professor. Actually, hell yeah.
I know she is.
That was such a deep cut. I'm so glad
I've read her before, yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. I am using her for my thesis work. But she has an essay that's about goth androgyny and sort of like what that means in terms of this like sort of like liminal experience. And but the title of it is The Cure lyric, looking for something forever gone, but something you will always want. And I think about that way more than I would like to.
I just think of looking so long at these pictures of you.
Oh,
there's a clear
that
expression.
one's really on the nose. That one's almost emo.
Hey, it's beauty from tragedy. He wrote that song about their house that burnt down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he found a picture of his wife, Mary, and that's where the impetus. That's my favorite song of all time, so of course I know.
Wow. No, that was news to me.
Yeah, it's like making beauty out of the pain. A party out of the pain.
Party out of the pain.
We're back.
Okay, so next up would be lifestyle, and I'm sort of thinking about this in terms of, this is not a great reference, but Voltaire's book What is Goth, which is sort of filled with tutorials about how to make your car interior goth, how to the interior decorating stuff he does on his YouTube channel.
I don't know that I knew this existed. Heather, did you know about this?
Did not.
It's a 2000s, I think, when that book came out. He had a couple of them. They're cute. They're cute little books. That was probably my first goth book I ever got. I think I picked it up at Hot Topic. But it's this sort of idea of like a cultivation of a vibe or a milieu. The idea that like, well, I'm goth, of course I would want a coffin as a coffee table kind of thing. Some people, I think, started to see that as like a shallow materialistic view of goth, but I'm curious is that a way that you express and experience goth, is sort of cultivating this environment of goth?
That's a really great question. And I actually would love to pause.
Yeah, let's take a quick break and come right back.
So how's your day been so far? Because we're just going to chat now while everyone's coming back.
I figured if you can't beat them, join them. I got some alcohol.
Hell yeah. Welcome to
I still have my water.
The party.
Last episode.
I have both.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Actually, do you know Jeffrey Dammit? You must. He's from Chicago
Maybe
originally.
If I saw their face. I don't recognize the name off the top.
He's from Chicago, but it's also just like one of those people that knows every human person alive. So I just thought it would occur. But anyway, he's a big
city that's pretty fractured too, so it's hard to say. There's a lot of goth pockets that don't really interact with each other.
Sure. Oh God, that's its own like beautiful topic to talk about. Because it is, an interesting.
It was funny. I didn't want to call LA out when on the show, but when
feel free.
It was just funny when you were talking about the sort of DJ drama. I was just thinking we do definitely have our own scene drama here, but for someone who doesn't live in California and never has, I have heard so much about the scene drama there that it makes me wonder how much is actually going on if I'm hearing about it.
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like people have some hot takes like all the time, and I tend to like personally be so disengaged with like any of that I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, bro, like I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm not it
Yeah.
takes a lot to get me like riled up about anything. Like a lot.
Yeah, I've always existed as a very apolitical entity in almost any goth scene I've been a part of. So I tended to be the one who knew people from all the different groups. But no, as far as social politics,
Right.
I'm very much a no drama llama.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think Heather and I both are too, like to almost an extreme degree.
Mm-hmm.
I walked in on and I heard Goth Pocket. Goth Pocket, Goth Pocket. What's that about?
just black ooze.
Just the
Oh,
different factionalism that can happen within larger scenes where certain people hang out with just their own group of friends and don't really interact with another group of people. And sometimes that can turn into friction as those they'll gravitate where this is our club, this is your club, and never the twain shall meet.
It always cracked me up how like, I feel like all of the goth kids were probably ostracized and rejects growing up, and then we get into this subculture and people do that to each other.
I fucking hate it. Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
huge source of
But
frustration.
also, I don't know, I have things to say. Oh God, but this is like, okay. I feel like I want to talk about this on the recording, but it's also not answering the question that you just asked.
well,
So I
I'll
wanna
figure
do
it out. I'll figure it out.
We'll
I'll edit it
shuffle
somehow.
order and get it edited so it
Yeah.
flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the question that you asked before we?
Well, go ahead. Share your thought. Well, and we can figure it out.
Oh, very tangentially, I guess, about the way that the goth hashtag goth pockets work out is like it can feel very like I guess cliquey and hierarchical, but I think that that's actually a misinterpretation because I think we all have very like feral cat behavior. So like you're like
Okay.
kind of just in your little colony that you feel safe in, and it's not ignoring or shunning someone else on purpose. It's just not a lot of cross-pollination. And that might be a little bit like naive and optimistic, and I know I can lean that way sometimes.
Yes.
But I do feel that that's true.
I think, because I'm not an extrovert in the traditional sense of I will just walk
Most
up
of
to
us
people and start
aren't.
talking to them. And when I started getting involved and meeting people in the Chicago scene, that was basically my like, I'm going to attach myself to an extrovert. I'm going to meet as many people as I can, which lasted me for about a month was all I could handle. And then I found the people I liked, and then I stopped talking to anyone else.
That makes a lot of, I think we are a very like introvert leaning scene, which is interesting because it's a nightlife social community. So there's this very strange like contradiction and balance that occurs. And that's, I think, where the cat-like behavior comes in.
There's also the look at me fashion choices too.
Is
Sure.
and
Well, that's a good topic too.
We've argued or had a polite discourse over the notion that you have these rejects and these ostracized children that were bullied as kids. Now we're in the goth community together, and then you have clubs that are like, we won't let you in unless you're wearing all black. Like, to me, that juxtaposition is hilarious. But I know Vesta takes the other. She takes the other.
No, I genuinely feel both sides of that argument like are like I'm literally on both sides of it.
The safe space part of it.
Yeah, because for instance, like if you want to make sure that it's not a touristy situation, it's like you have to be like on board with what we're doing here. I don't think it's at least I hope, well, with the exception of like Cloak and Dagger, kind of fuck that. But
yeah, they tried it in Chicago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It didn't last very long,
So
but they
that
tried.
one felt like judgy and gatekeepy. But in general, like Wednesdays had that for, I don't think they enforce it quite as much now, but because it's a free club, it had the opposite vibe from Cloak and Dagger, which is very like exclusive on purpose. Like the ethos felt bad. But I think if it's a free club and you want to make sure that it's like people are there intentionally. So on that side, I'm like on board with the dress code thing. On the other hand, of course, we do want to like welcome the eclectics of, and like Obelisk like has no, it's a free club and no dress code, and we have theme night, so it's like utterly chaotic in a positive way. And I know, Heather, that you're on the side of like that feels wrong and gatekeepy to have dress
I
codes.
understand why. Like, I also like I respect the notion of trying to keep the right people in and the wrong people out. But it's the conform lemmings kind of attitude that's like cracks me up, because these were all the dystopian wild kids growing up that were, you know, bullied.
But to
And
take
now
that
we're
further,
like,
I
you
think
must be like us. You
but
must.
that I think does speak to like what we were saying earlier, like especially like what I'm trying to like write this thesis about too, is like alienation and community are like interdependent. So that alienation that you felt when you were young is the thing that brought you to this community. So I don't think it's conformity for conformity's sake. It is I actually had a talk with Tenebrae about this kind of recently too, that he was like, yeah, I don't mind feeling like I'm wearing a uniform. It's like that's what it is. Like that's the proclamation. Um, to sort of go against the like South Park goth kid episode, which is making fun of that. And it's a great episode. Like I do think it's wonderful, but there is, I think, another much like the SNL goth talk, some misunderstanding of like the self-awareness that actually goes into being a part of this subculture.
Yeah, there's a surface level irony of the we're all individuals, but we've all got the same boots on kind of thing.
Yes, I know, and that's true though, and like I think I have an acceptance about that.
Yeah, I think once you start getting into questions of identity and how that is expressed and embodied, and the moving pieces of like social theory and think that's a very long involved conversation, and it just sort of depends on where you come at from that and what individualism means to you. And it's like, that's a big I think my takeaway is I'm going to start calling my asshole my goth pocket.
Wow,
very good.
So
goth pocket.
Can't have a Cemetery Confessions episode
it's warm,
discussions
it's gooey
of your asshole.
So I'll stop. Okay, well,
oh god, that reminds me of something I wanted to tell Heather today and I didn't do it. Anyway,
let me I just have one thing to add on the whole gatekeeping thing. I know I've discussed gatekeeping before, but I've always been very mixed on the gatekeeping thing. I view it as very important from the safe space aspect, as I talked about, cultivating a space that lets us all take off our masks and not feel threatened and endangered. So I think gatekeeping is important, but there's lots of how do you gatekeep questions that are out there. And I think things like a dress code is lazy gatekeeping. It's very lazy gatekeeping.
Sure.
And that has a huge risk to it as well, because it can give you the illusion that you're in a safe space. But someone who puts on a black hoodie and is a predator can simply be a predator in a black hoodie. And they got through it because
an actual goth who's a predator. Yeah.
There are also, that was the second thing, is there are goth predators. There are people who
are
immune, members
obviously.
of the community that can be predators and can be a danger to that safe space. And rooting them out is difficult, especially if the only barrier to entry you have is a color palette.
Yeah.
My question to you is like, what do you think that the best method of like safety gatekeeping would be? It's hard.
I wish I could answer that. And a lot of that does come back down to, the watchword of the episode, which is community. Everybody needs to know a little bit about everybody and know
almost
what's
like
going on.
The door person vouch for you, or to have known regulars bring someone new in.
I mean, that's
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what frustrates me a little bit about goth culture is there is such a sense of community, and there is such a network of local contextual groups that is ripe for like activism and doing important things, and we don't really do that, and that kind of bugs me. But that's a different show.
I feel like, I mean, we maybe do only the bare minimum, but like Release the Bats had their whole like Bats Against Trump campaign that we also like sell their Bats Against Trump pins at Obelisk. And we'll do, I don't know, like Heather, can you remind me, like we've done like some donation stuff when like we Obviously, we don't have a door fee, but we do take tips and donations. So we've done like some charity stuff too.
Yeah, we did. I mean, that's where it's like the question of political comes in, but we did, yeah, when I think we did something when the fires happened. We did something with
when Trump was reelected and
Trump,
we had a Goths for
and I feel
Gaza
like
thing here.
it's like
what? Yeah, we did a Goths for Gaza event in Chicago. And Sarah definitely has every time of Nocturna, we're always doing a sort of a fuck ICE moment. We do have a very large, as I'm sure you do as well in LA, a very large Hispanic community that are part of the scene as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot of solidarity there to shield and protect. Though I haven't necessarily seen more than words, but I'm not necessarily involved in all that. Though I do know a lot of people who do go to the rallies and do go to the various protests and events and stuff like that. So there is some of that, but again, to Dani's point, how much of it is a lot of speech making versus actual material aid or whatever the need is.
And that is like such a huge ass topic that I know that you guys touch on in your podcast. I have a lot of respect for, because Goth is seen as kind of an apolitical subculture because of its like escapist nature. And I get a little bit like, I think bristly, Heather and I, this is one of our friendly debates, is that I don't think that it's as escapist as it's perceived as, at least in my own experience. I don't know, like it is different from like the idea of punk, for instance, which is much more like socially outward, active, aggressive. Because it's so inward, I think that gets misinterpreted as inactive.
It can also be, I guess, viewed as more of a separatist movement rather than an activist movement. Where, to quote Cruise Shadows, "Leave me alone." Where we just want to have our community. We want to fight for our right to be ourselves. I don't agree with it either, but this is definitely an ethos that comes into play a lot of times. That's sort of a thing that a lot of Goths want, is their ability to just be themselves.
Right. Yeah. Like I mean, my whole thing is just the personal is political feminist sort of thing. It's like some Goths like to think that we are an island unto ourselves, but we are enmeshed within the broader cultural and political movement, and just being Goth in the world itself is political, just like being gay in the world is political. And that's, I wanted to ask about fashion, and I'll do that in a second. But part of my thought about that is that like the clothing, because it is a blend of like the anachronistic and the present and the future, and sort of harnesses that nostalgia to create new contexts and new meanings. Some people do take that down the road of the fantasy, the escapism sort of thing. But I don't think, I love that from the perspective of being a genderqueer person and being able to play with that, but deconstructing binaries and that sort of thing. But I think embodying that stuff it exists in a different contexts, and those contexts have different meanings and different expectations depending where you are. And so for me, it's about changing the world into what I want the world to be through the enactment of those things, and clothing is part of that. It's those actions, the rituals, the interactions that make little changes to maximize the way I think the world would be better, and thereby minimize other ways of being in the world that might be harmful. And that's where we're starting to get now, like red-pilled Goth YouTubers and shit like that. But I don't think you get away from that. Goth can perpetrate the same sexist, systemic issues within our spaces, right? And if you just want to close your eyes and pretend that doesn't happen, then it's just going to happen more.
Yeah. I think I used to have a lot of denial about that because of the presence of like androgyny and gender fluidity and feminism. And then, yeah, sort of had to come to terms with like, oh no, we're just people. And in people spaces, it's gonna recreate like a lot of like the same systemic problems,
Yeah.
and we're not special and exempt.
We have this whole page. I just see it on Facebook. Sorry, I said the F word. Where it's called Goths
Goths
Against,
against sexual predators.
no, Goths Against Cancel Culture.
Oh yeah, that's become a meme.
Oh,
now.
that's another
It's
one.
so
Oh God,
fucking
they're two.
stupid.
Yes.
Wait, Heather, but do you know that they're kind of at war with each other?
Yes.
Of course.
Ugh.
Yeah. So there's people in there that are just wanting to like stir up shit, but they're actually like, this is what that assumption that because you're goth you're going to be open-minded. Oh no. Like like Goths Against Cancel Culture. Then we have a separate one that's Goths Against Sexual Predators, and it's mainly women
But
that
wasn't the cancel one made in response?
I don't know if it was made in response. It was made in response to all these DJs getting canceled, and a lot of, like She Wants Revenge, and, like stuff that's happened in
Right.
bands and stuff that's happened, and the Me Too movement, and being worried about like, oh yeah, and then because we assume your political leniences, but we're not 100% sure. But you would think that goths would be liberal, or at least but they're not. I mean, it's sort of a response to that, trying to be like, well, can't we just, things aren't what they used to be, and can't we just do this to women and do that, or do, just
Right.
whining about
Isn't it
that.
good that things aren't what they used to be?
Right, but
Yeah.
like, you should go. I mean, I don't know if you've looked on that page, Vesta, but like,
No, actually, I know both people who run them.
I know one of them.
You're getting canceled after this episode comes out.
I probably am. Fine. I don't give a fuck.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems
No,
like
but I don't agree with my acquaintance friend who runs the cancel one. I'm not on board.
it has a lot of incel energy.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, just real quick to speak to the apolitical and the isolationism impulse. There's a lovely poem that I'm sure most of you all know that speaks directly to this. I'm gonna read a short excerpt of it. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Yeah, I think
Classic.
wow, and that gave me big feel as a Jewish goth person. That
I know.
big ass feelings. And yeah, it's a great poem.
Yeah,
and I think does speak to our sort of collectivist nature.
Yeah, and also
like
speaks
not wanting
against
to
the
feel that feeling.
impulse to isolate, to think you can be safe within your own little bubble, and you never can, because we do exist in a world that we all have to interact.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we are all, it's very strange. Yeah, I see what you're saying with this, because we are all responsible for each other, but also like, what is this isolationist, separatist nature of like being in a subculture and having sort of that Addams Family on the Hill vibe of like, we are safe here, but how are we interacting with the world, and what does that mean for us?
I think it's more, I see it as a kind of a juvenile perspective, because when it sort of comes out of coming out of high school, and like you were talking about, I don't want to interact with these people. It's the very us versus them in group out group thing. But that's a very naive, myopic sort of way of looking at it. Unless you're talking about the, us versus the billionaires, which I'm on board with, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about clothing rules for getting into clubs, which I was going to then build off of and ask the fashion element, the aesthetic element of goth, because that's a whole other thing. And I guess the way I was going to frame the question was, what's your relationship with goth, or how has your relationship with goth fashion changed over the years, and what role does it play in understanding goth?
Well, you can see Vesta's whole closet behind her.
You can't actually. It doesn't have a door. It's just a rack. Okay.
Nice
And
rack.
it is just a sea of darkness back there. No exceptions. But okay, so Heather and I think was it our most recent episode with guests was Mimi and Michelle, and was kind of to talk about this question.
I loved that episode.
Oh, thank you. Because it was something that we've been sort of like skirting around and avoiding because I don't like sort of my part of my sort of like stubborn ethos for this for Open Graves was like I want to talk about goth and I don't want to talk that much about music or fashion, which is like literally the defining elements of what the subculture means.
Right.
So it's like, so if you take out the discussion of music and fashion, what is left?
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing. But then it
Right.
was like, okay, but like, why am I avoiding this? Because it actually, they're both deeply important. Obviously, like they are the building blocks of the thing. So then having those two women friends on the pod was a way to sort of talk about it and also talk about why I didn't want to talk about it. And and I think that they had amazing insights because they like are like sort of like self-defined like fashionistas, but it's not their whole identity. If it was their whole identity, they wouldn't have been our guests for it.
And they were very insistent on the fact that they didn't want to talk about fashion being the superficial thing.
Yeah, no, it is a really
to a deeper level and explain sort of, I mean, and we also failed to mention that Mimi Sosa del Campo also pursues, she's the stylist and her stuff is out, she's out there to be hired, and we didn't even get into that part. But
yeah, we should have plugged her work. Oh, we failed.
Yeah, she also sells things online and everything. But yeah, anyway, fashion. I am not as a diehard when it comes to fashion as Vesta is. I love it all.
You're literally invisible right now, Heather.
I take it all so serious. Oh, good. I'm like, it's so bright in here. Like it's for some reason the light is filtering in at a weird level, but I know I look like I'm sitting in the dark.
Absolutely, you are the dark.
Doors open.
You're actually out gothing me.
No, I just have a little more fun with it, and honestly, it depends on how I feel. If I'm not in the mood, I'm not in the mood. I'll just put on the basics. But
you were wearing a hot loincloth the other night.
Thank you. Yeah, a loincloth. I think it's whatever dress is circulating online that's quote unquote goth. It's something I just bought for fun because I kept seeing this damn thing show up. But yeah, the loincloths are back.
Yeah, I have almost the same dress, but my friend gave it to me because she ordered it online. It was too small for her, so I inherit stuff. Yeah. Which I guess actually like that is relevant to what you're asking. It's like I thought that was an anecdote, but it's not. I think the way that like goth fashion is being, this is like not a hot take. I think we all feel this way. The way that goth fashion is being marketed right now, because it is in this weird little like kind of mainstream upswing. That's fine. Like, and it does make it easier for some of us to like find things. But there's something to be said about the way that Heather and I were just talking about our like loincloth dresses. That I inherited from a friend because like we're in community and like I'm just wearing like a basic black dress right now. This is from like Goodwill, like 10 years ago or something. And not that there's anything wrong with like seeking out like niche stuff, but I do have a certain amount of pride in not defaulting to that. And I do feel like the way that I use, I'm almost like even sick of using the word fashion already, but aesthetics, I guess maybe that's a more meaningful way to say it. Is that like if all goths are dandies, which I believe that all goths are dandies, or at least there's a huge Venn diagram that's mostly a circle.
Even the grufties?
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking when I was like, it's a Venn diagram that's mostly a circle. No, we have like some crusty death rockers for sure. And they are also, but you know what?
They're dandies in their own way.
Death rock is kind of its own dandyism. Like
Yeah.
really. Like because if you lean too far out of that, then you're just like a crust punk, and that is a different thing. So I'm actually going to lean toward like, no, I think I'm going to double down on my statement. All goths are dandies. They're just color desaturated. And
what does that mean for our listeners who might not know?
yeah, thanks for asking that, because I realized I was not explaining myself. Because I always assume that people are going to like follow my shorthand, and that's actually not the case. So I associate dandyism with Oscar Wilde and sort of a subcultural queer movement of the Victorian era that was like hyper aesthetic, camp before we had the word camp. Like it's basically the origin story of like camp and drag and how we see queer culture now.
Sort
And
of
also
Byron-esque a bit.
For sure, yeah, Byron was definitely a part of that. And there was like a darkness to it too, even though it was very lighthearted. It was like a way of, I think the pain of being an outsider in Victorian culture is like a huge factor in what spawned goth. If that tracks for you guys.
Yeah.
I think of dandyism and I think of very showy.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I mean, that's where the
Absolutely.
camp part comes in.
Right.
And it's sort of a way of like being irreverent in a very serious society, and sort of like the sort of idea of like the self as art, or like identity as like a performance art piece. But I think that was because of a lot of like what you said earlier, Heather, of like, we're going to party through the pain. And I think that that is really a lot of what dandyism is this like way of embracing outsiderness and turning it into like this performance piece almost. And if that's not what goth is, I don't fucking, yeah.
Right.
Did that make sense?
It did make sense. I'm trying to connect the dandyism. I don't know a lot about dandyism. I have a friend who is a black dandy, and he's been involved. I met him in the goth scene from 20s something years ago, but black dandyism is his thing, and I don't know enough to talk about that publicly. But there's a lot of crossover in my personal experience that I can agree with you. Yeah.
And I guess like as well, Heather and I are both poets too, so there's a lot of that I think that is relevant as well, is to be in like the expressive arts, when maybe that's not an encouraged way of being.
Yeah, I guess the only confusion question about it, at least based on my knowledge of the history of dandyism, is that it focuses on elegance and refinement in opposition to flamboyance, at least in its origin. And
yeah, it was a very it was in the salons. It was a very like what am I trying to intellectual movement.
Right. It was very refined, very put together, in opposition to what was the aristocratic norm of the era, which was really flashy, really big and flamboyant, but still had that elegance, had that sense of being meticulous and being very well put together. And I think goth sort of flirts in both of those two realms, both the flamboyant and the elegant and refined, rather than being as attached to just the elegant and refined that dandyism in its origin was.
I feel like what you just described actually is true across the whole spectrum, in the sense that like, well, I guess the way that I perceive dandyism is that it is very much both. Like it is like elegance, refinery, intelligence, but it's not excluding pageantry and camp. Like I see pageantry and camp as part of dandyism.
And that's fair. It can evolve too.
To me, it's a peacock.
Yeah, that's my tattoo of Oscar Wilde, is surrounded by a peacock feather.
It's just like the peacock, the showy, better
But
than
it's showy
you.
with intention. It's showy with depth. Like it's surface. Okay, I'm gonna sum it up. I think the way that I find dandyism valuable, and the way that this relates to your question about fashion and aesthetics, is that surface doesn't exclude depth. Surface is the first layer.
Mhm.
So I think that this assumption that if you're putting effort into, okay, look, my name is Vesta Vaingloria. I named myself Vaingloria in order to like embrace or take away the shame that we have around vanity. Like this is a very intentional naming process for me. And it has to do with my connection with dandyism and like that vanity and shallowness are not the same thing.
Yeah. Also, I love that as well, because that was going to be my like a question at the end was, what would you change about goth? And I always say I'd love to bring back the silly goth names. Not silly goth names, but goth names. Like even if
Are
it
you
means
calling me a silly goth name?
no. I just think there's a lot of meaning in that, and they're fun, is what I mean, not silly.
Yeah. And actually a lot of us are. I mean, like talk about like Tenebrae and Archon, like we all have like these names, and like Vesta and Tenebrae, like we changed our names legally together.
Mm-hmm.
And you've never heard the name Heather before, especially in California. We're just a rare.
We have a lot of Heathers.
Thank you. Double Heather.
I mean, it is the fun of cracking open the thesaurus and seeing what word pops out for yourself for your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me move on to the next question. In sort of wrapping up the conversation about what goth is, and I guess in the context of gatekeeping, because this usually comes up in the context of saying trying to define goth, which is the question of like the evolution of goth. And people usually, the way I hear it is, people will talk about, well, of course goth evolves, but maybe it shouldn't evolve this way because I don't like that. So I guess I wanted to ask, like, how or have you seen the definition of goth evolve over the years?
Everybody wants big titty goth girl, right?
Oh God,
man.
Oh no!
I mean, yeah, I think it's like that sort of like when that era of beach, what is it? Health goth, beach goth, like that sort of thing came up. I know it's embarrassing, but it's appropriation of our culture. But you know, like I don't know, that to me has evolved in a very different unsettling way. But even in the like going back to fashion, like nowadays they have like almost cheat codes for goth looks. Like for example, I found there's these tights that have a built-in fishnet garter thing.
Oh.
And it's all one. It's all one.
Yeah.
It's not like layering.
That's not new.
It's cheating.
I fully agree that it's cheating, but it's not new. Like those like fake garter belt thingies.
Oh, but the fake, like, yeah, the illusion of knee socks or the thigh highs, but it's really all one. Goes all the way up.
Damn kids.
See, I'm not gonna.
Oh wait, Heather, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Okay.
I'm not going to call that cheating. I'm going to call that inflexibility. So you can't mix and match as well. The less pieces you have, the less opportunity you have to mix and match and invent your outfit. I have the same thing with buying, you can get these relatively sort of cheap suit things on an Amazon that basically come with a built-in vest where the vest is basically attached to the inside of the jacket. It looks like a jacket in a vest, but really the vest is what buttons closed. The jacket is sewn to the vest. You have.
I've never heard of this. Wow.
I started to see that.
I hate them.
In the late 90s, beforehand, we had all been putting like long sleeve shirts underneath short sleeve shirts. And then they started coming out with shirts that had long sleeve sewn into a short sleeve, but it was just one sleeve.
Yep. Same thing.
Yep.
But
I just sort of were at that point in the podcast.
my fashion sense is all about separates and putting them together in many different ways rather than single outfits.
Yeah.
So when you when I go and look at these things on Amazon or wherever, and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. Wait, I can't change the vest, or I can't change this or that out when I want to do a different combination of colors.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think
do use color in my goth look. As you can kind of see from my picture, I almost always have
Yes.
something of color. That was, of course, a Halloween, or not Halloween, a Valentine's Day event that I was at, hence the prevalence of red.
I think, yeah, and to the fashion point, it used to be that every sort of big city had their own fashion. Like if you went to LA or San Francisco or Berlin or Chicago, they all had their own kind of look. But like to your point now, that like it was hard to get lip service if you lived somewhere else, but you can kind of get everything now. And it was also funny to me when we were doing the goth taxonomies for the fashion stuff, and one of them was the eclectic goth, and I'm like, isn't that just goth though? Do we not all do that?
Wait, how do you define eclectic goth?
That's the question.
So that was, well, yeah, I mean, that was when it was the sort of like, okay, this is what a romantic goth is. This is what a cyber goth is. This is what a metal goth is. And then the eclectic goth was like, oh, it's somebody who mixes and matches everything.
Like
And I
just
was
a
like,
goth
that's
person.
what
So I see
we
what you're
do.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say an
Yeah.
eclectic goth is kind of a gothic burner,
Oh.
Oh,
where it's
and I do know
all
those.
the
We
thing.
definitely
I
have
know,
those.
but they're the ones who definitely put the most. Let's just throw all the junk in together and make a weird bricolage costume for
Yeah.
our outfit.
There is such a thing as too much, I think.
I
To each their own, I guess.
think I've described myself. Not I think. No, it's on my fucking Instagram profile. Like I do describe myself as a death rock dandy, and I think that
Mhm.
that is actually like a more descriptive way of just saying like, yeah, you're a goth person.
Mhm.
Because like that sort of that crossover of like the like fancy bitchness and the like kind of like down and dirty fuck itness are like married.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's that's why it always bothered me when people started trying to move away from fashion as something that is part of goth, and which I think in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, fashion was a much more identifiable and important thing because the clubs were all future pop and that sort of thing, and
Mhm.
industrial, and so there wasn't a lot of music being put out either. So aesthetic presentation became a lot more important. But then as music started becoming more important, and we sort of got tired of all these like YouTube fashion hauls and things like that, people started turning against fashion and sort of pointing at it as a like a commodification thing. You guys talked about the mainstream outlet sort of stuff. And like the magazine saying, oh, embrace your inner goth this Halloween season or whatever. But I think ironically, that sort of turn against fashion and towards saying goth is just about music, that is what watered down the substance of goth clothing. To being more of like a color preference or than any sort of like cultural statement or ontological like identity thing. Because I think there's an aspect of like both the presenting a disaffection with the world and the sort of like signs and symbols side of that, and like finding your tribe and that sort of thing, but also this idea of empowerment and like removing the fear and anxiety in the world by becoming painful art, like going back to the gothic thing, becoming the ghost, becoming the monster, or the death, sort of becoming death. I don't remember, I think it was Heather who was talking about that idea of fashion very much the same way I see music being this what's the word I'm trying to look for, collection, whatever, this coming together of all of this different stuff into one sort of package. And so I think there is a lot of depth there in the way we present ourselves that I think was sort of we missed out on a lot of that because people just wanted to say, oh, it's just music, stop being, you can't just dress goth because it's not a costume kind of thing. But I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that point because I get frustrated with that too, in the sense that there's this like weird, like unnecessary pendulum swing between fashion and
Mm,
music when it's actually this like largely integrated thing where like fashion and music are like sort of the pillars, but it's actually this like
mm,
internal experience and way of being and being in community and also being separate. So I do get frustrated with that as well. And I think that was again part of the like the impetus for Open Graves
mm.
was a little bit of that frustration about like I don't want to talk about music. Like how do we talk about goth if we don't talk about music or fashion? Like what are
Mhm.
we left with? And the
Yeah.
answer is very ambiguous, but like it is something worth talking about.
Hmm.
Um and I would say the music is like this, it's like the binding agent, it's the glue of the thing,
Hmm.
but it's not the only thing.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this then. Have you both heard the term Schwarzscene?
No, say
The
more.
it's a German concept, I guess. It's this idea of the black umbrella rather than saying goth. It's a broader
No, I've
term.
never heard that. I love it.
Yeah, so this
Fucking Germans would. Oh, good for them.
there so we talked about this with Natasha Scharf. She had this uh she brought up this concept which was like, I mean, I've heard it before, but like the goth umbrella idea, sort of arguing
Yeah.
that um all these styles might seem disparate, but they have similar ancestors, from like gothic metal to steampunk to cyber goth or
Sure.
whatever. So why can't we just call these things goth? Sort of open up the umbrella of that instead of trying to differentiate and nitpick. So I guess there's a couple questions there. Like, how do you feel about that? How do you find the boundary between things? Do you care that much? Do we talk about that too much?
I'm kind of I'm of the vantage point where I think it's not, to me, I make fun of it. But I don't take it all that seriously. Like that's my own take on it, is kind of like I'm happy that there's all these different layers and types of people and genres within this subculture, but I'm not going to try to, you have to be this to fit into that box or that. That's not my, I don't want to waste time on that.
Mm,
That's sort of that's my own way of looking at things. But I know I'm probably a little more laid back in that arena. I think the other stuff I get more fired up on. But to me, I'm like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like. I mean,
hmm.
to me, like, there's not a lot of poetry found in cyber goth to me. So, like there's some of
They're talking
those.
about Pong. What's
Yeah.
where's the
Yeah.
poeticism in that?
So, yeah, so whatever. And so as far as the different types of music as well, as I mean, depending on what emotion, whatever, but I don't think of a particular subfield of goth and then try to replicate that in my fashion. That's not how I
Hmm.
approach anything. But I know some people do. But that's, to me, I'm just like, we're all part of the same family. Um, you do you,
Yeah.
sort of.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love the idea of the goth umbrella. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because well also like even like linguistically speaking, all those little subgenres, whether it's like fashion subgenres or music subgenres, because we have like 1,000 music subgenres, it's fucking ridiculous.
Hmm.
But they all make sense. And the thing is, like, I can get a little like irritated when people are like, "Oh, I don't believe in labels." Because like even this is like what
Yeah.
it's like what
Yeah.
both of our mutual podcasts are about is like identifying with and describing and exploring what is essentially a label. Um,
In this
which can be
Reddit
kind of
post, I
embarrassing
will
sometimes,
explain why
honestly.
labels are dumb.
I yeah, right. But they're useful because honestly, like labels are actually just language.
Yeah.
Like it's just other language. And
Yeah.
it's shorthand usually, so it can feel reductive, and I totally get that. But when people, I think, lean that way about, I feel like it comes up a lot with like sexual orientation, even more so than like
Mm.
goth subgenres. And they're like, "Ugh, I don't believe in labels. I'm just a person." And I'm like, yeah, but like they're just descriptors. They're just ways of like identifying yourself to another person. They don't have to define your entire existence by any means at all.
Well, and I think there's the aspect of taking control of your identity rather than if there are no labels, then other people kind of get to define you in a way, which can get real messy, especially getting into sexual orientation, like especially in like healthcare and things like that. I saw a TikTok from someone earlier today again talking about she was making the point that goth is still around, so therefore what it means to be goth hasn't changed at all. And I thought it felt like a bit of a tautology to me, but it was sort of that was my first thought, was like, but language changes. It's also contextual from individual conversations to where you are in the world, and like nothing is that irreducible static thing across time and space, and that flexibility I think is built into the what it means to be the questioning of things, the dialectical nature of goth. Sort of, we're talking about boundary, negotiating boundaries. That eternal talking about what goth is a boundary negotiation. And is it big? Is it small? Like I think that's baked into goth, and so in that sense, it is fluid. There isn't something rigid like that.
And that also made me realize that I fully somehow did not answer your question. Somewhere else.
That's the ADHD.
Which was, oh God. Yeah. It's ADHD coupled with wine. It's a wild ride.
You do you, Queen.
Thank you. I'm trying my best.
ADHD.
Oh yeah.
As well.
We can talk more about that if you want. But I do want to try to answer your question that Heather was trying to speak to earlier about the evolution, or like what the change has been. And like it's kind of a hard one, because I think that the goth scene, community, whatever, I think that the ebb and flow of it is actually integral to what it is. And I think that it's very easy for folks to forget that. And like people will often complain that like, oh, like there's no good nights anymore. The scene is dying. Oh no. Or like, oh, we're in like this booming phase. And it's like, I think people seem to forget that like none of these experiences are new, and they're not going away. Like there's not ever a consistency, and that's okay. So I think like what I'm actually saying is kind of optimistic. It sounds a little pessimistic, but I mean it in a positive way, because when we experience that ebb, I think it's like a very like peaceful way of being like, this is what's happening right now, but it's not permanent.
Yes.
Whereas people like really freak out. Like they really like get very like catastrophizing about like when certain clubs or events close. And it's like, you know what? Obelisk might not be around forever. I'm sure it won't be. That's fucking okay. I don't want people to lose their shit when that eventually happens. I'm also not being pessimistic by saying that will eventually happen.
I will lose my shit. That happens.
You might lose your shit, Heather. I know.
I feel that's a little more common amongst young individuals than it is people who've been around a bit, because the older ones
don't. All my friends are over 10 years older than me, and they freak out all the time.
That's interesting, because they've weathered.
But that's what's fucking frustrating for me as a younger friend and partner or whatever to witness, is like, you've been in this pattern more than I have. I having to bear witness to like what you can't see.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of
that got a little heated. Apparently
hold on to trying to clench with a tight fist the resistance to change. And I agree with you. I think it's a very sort of going down the Buddhist path of like, life is nothing but change. And that's what I'm seeing now with a lot of the older generation that I know who are dying, getting cancer, getting to the end of their life. It's very scary for them, because that is a change that you have no control over. And accepting the fact that we don't have control over the change, I think it's a benefit of goth, if you let it be, that meditation on death, it I think you live a more peaceful life if you can accept that.
Yeah, it's the tenets of Stoicism and Goth kind of align in a big way. Yeah, just the reminder that at any moment you could die, and we're gonna go dance to it.
Heather and I actually just recorded an episode about that exact topic that is not out yet.
Hell yeah.
Okay, nice.
You heard it here first.
Well done. Well segued.
I wanted to say that that Goth in general, like, we are so rooted in nostalgia, and we're so rooted in like, I can understand why people get upset when things close, because, like, for example, like, we had a venue called the Monte Cristo here in LA, and it was now everybody romanticizes it, and to the great degree, because it was such a great thing in its heyday. But from the songs that everybody wants to hear over and over again, like, you want things you can count on. You want, so to me, I understand when people can, think that this might be it, because they need their kind of golden oldie standbys to rely.
There's also, like, this comes back to the neurodivergence aspect of the goth community, is that, like, the more, like, I don't know, spectrumy or atypical you are, the more, like, external consistency becomes, like, this a very important way of being and comfort. And I think
predictability,
ritual.
Yeah, like, we go to the same places on certain nights of the week. We hear, like, relatively, like, a certain shuffle of the same music.
We dance in the same places.
Yes. Oh my God. The way. Oh, Jesus Christ. Are
you guys like that?
I mean, I
like,
definitely
you'll have, like, a place within a venue.
Have a place that you start the night on. You have a place. It's like,
I actively avoid doing that.
Oh,
I can understand the temptation, and then also, I associate with gas to some degree, where if I have space, I will fill it. So,
like my goth pocket.
Like your goth pocket. Yes, just like your goth pocket.
Sorry.
But yeah, I like to move around a lot.
In my
I do tend to orbit clubs rather than stay at one place. Though I wallflower a lot too. It's I do a lot of watching and wallflowering. But I tend to like, I'll wallflower here for a while, then I'll go over here and wallflower, then I'll go over there and wallflower. So I will move around. And then with dancing, there really isn't. I kind of tend to gravitate towards a central location, but I don't have to be. I just try to go wherever I have the most space to express when I can. Which oftentimes is the middle of the night. If I am dancing in the middle of the night, is going to be at a fringe or an edge somewhere, because that's the only place I don't have to, like, burrow my way through a mass of bodies to try to find a space and then try to beat open a little pocket for me to move around in.
My pussy again.
Beating open a pocket.
I probably don't have too much. Just FYI.
Okay.
Well, but that's just my schedule.
No, that's okay. We can wrap up. That's fine. I had a couple unconnected questions, which aren't like the main. We covered the main stuff I wanted to talk about, so we can totally wrap up. And share, like, your podcast, where people can find that, what the next obelisk stuff is, that kind of thing. Is there any, like, topic or subject you wanted to get out there before we
go?
We're gonna
do love your questions.
Great questions so far. We're gonna do a poetry hybrid in January at one of the clubs called The Alternative. That's coming up the second week in January for anyone listening who's in the LA tri-state area. And we're doing an obelisk. You tell them, Vesta, what theme is.
Oh, yeah. So we're going full circle again. We're doing an Addams and Munster's family holiday party.
Oh, lovely.
Hell yeah. The Munsters was my introduction before the Addams
wholesome as
family.
fuck.
I love that.
I actually, I got into the Munsters around the same age too, like the 60s show before I saw the Addams 60s show. And yet I have more identification with the Adams.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, Adams was definitely my first. And when I was younger, I was definitely more of a purist. Like, oh, the Munsons are terrible. The Adams family is amazing. I love them both now.
I
They
hate
both
like
have
a
their own
versus
thing.
idea. That's why we're having a family party.
Yeah. No, I think they're both wonderful in their own way.
Yeah.
And Open Graves is the podcast, which you can find on Spotify, on Instagram. Anywhere.
Spotify, yeah, if you want to follow our Instagram, it's at open.graves.podcast. And we have some pretty silly and yet sincere photo stuff going on there in relation to the episodes that we produce in a very sporadic, unpredictable manner.
Not as organized as you guys to any.
No, we are not as well produced as you at all. So thank you for reaching out to us. I really, really appreciate it.
That's all Dani. I'm just riding their coattails.
Well, I mean, very selfishly, I do love your podcast, and I love that it exists because I love your perspective. I love what you bring to it. And, the last episode that I was going to ask about, but you brought up, just talking about your life experience of misogyny and like your expression of femininity in the goth scene.
Looking at your question list, and that is what I wanted to talk with you about before Heather has to leave. Is about sorry, please finish your sentence. I am so sorry for getting too excited.
Sure. I could turn that into a question. I was just praising your podcast and that I like to listen to it. But I mean, I was sort of just going to ask on the back of that episode, the sort of discussion around the expectations placed on women, sort of through emotional and physical presentations, and the way that internalized and externalized misogyny creates this sort of battle for self-acceptance and self-actualization and all the stuff that you talked about in the show. I was curious in that episode how the goth scene has played into deconstructing those patriarchal norms, or if you found that like goth is more neutral on that, where that kind of fits in.
We could do a whole other episode
I
just
know.
about that. And we tried, I guess. Do you want to speak to that first, Heather?
Man.
I could go on a rant.
Go for it. Rant away and I'll chime in.
Okay. Please interrupt me when you feel the need. Ooh, yeah, very mixed feelings, because I think when I was younger and getting into the goth community, like sort of coming from like the Rocky Horror community, which has a similar ethos of like, we think we're deconstructing the binary, and yet maybe not as much as we think we're doing. And I think I had a really, I don't know, not misguided, but like maybe overblown sense of like difference and safety because of the level of androgyny that was happening. So the men around me didn't feel like I was getting this like masculine energy that I don't want. It felt very like we are sames, and like that's sort of my identification with. Oh God, this is such a big topic, dudes. Like, what is happening? And also, sorry for saying dudes, but I do say that to everyone, but I don't want it to land weird.
It's okay.
It's fine. It doesn't.
I'm offended.
Right? Like, you're included in the dudes, Heather.
I know.
It can be all the young dudes.
Oh, carry the news. So yeah, of feeling like we're all on the same team is really how I think gender identity in the goth community landed with me, and like the part that I was really attracted to, like both attracted to safety wise and attracted to like sexually. Like this is also like the people that I date and like the people that I fuck. So it's like I seek this like sameness, because like I am a pretty hyper femme person, but I feel like that's kind of irrelevant to having been born a woman. I feel less like that as I get older, because I am feeling more of the effects of society about what it does mean to be an adult woman, and that kind of sucks. I had more optimism when I was young about gender queerness. And I do like oscillate between she, they, but it's like because I know I'm so femme that like I'm like I don't the they might not make sense, but it's like they're both on the table.
Mm.
And then the people that I'm both attracted to and feel safe with as friends are generally like pretty femme people. And I did always feel like that there is a political aspect to that, of the rejection of mainstream masculine culture and how our society values that kind of above all else.
Yep.
And maybe I still have that optimism.
I find a lot of sorry, I'm having a lot of sleep, so I'll just say it. Like, I find that to be a pretty naive. Like, but in,
I know we talk about this all the time.
I know,
being naive, but I don't want it to die.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, given the amount of we have that sexual assault in the goth community stuff going on, I think there's a lot of we have people getting roofied. We have a lot of women exploited.
I will argue this though, compared to other nightlife subcultures, the roofie thing is very, very rare. It happens. We're not special, we're not exempt, but like compared to other nightlife cultures, I think that it's worth noting that it's different.
It still happens, and then given not the fashion, but the way that we express ourselves and feeling like we're in a safe place where there's women that wear next to nothing, and they're with the same confidence walking to their cars alone.
Are you talking about me, Heather?
No, not just you, but like other people too that I've seen, like where I'm just like,
it was a joke, sorry.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of I feel very protective over that illusion of safety because I don't think it exists. And also like, I'm bisexual, I love women. But I feel like our goth community is very straight. In a way that women who are playing with sexuality is not as legitimate as I would hope for it to be. It seems a little performative.
So I would say that about my Rocky Horror experience more so than about the goth community. I think we actually have a. I do understand what you mean. I do agree with you, but
it's for the
I don't know the way that like the queerness Venn diagrams with the gothness is very. I don't know. I feel like there actually is a lot of bisexuality, but not a lot of. I don't know. What am I trying to say? And I'm doing it badly. Because we have like lesbian goth night, for instance, now. And
okay.
that
I've seen
like that's just the name of the night. Like it's like no.
But I wouldn't even like having gone. You haven't gone yet. It's to
I
me,
went once.
Oh, you have gone. Okay,
only once though.
I wouldn't consider it goth. I mean, to me, it feels.
Oh,
yeah. To me, it feels. And sorry, whoever's listening. But to me, it feels. It's more like Cloak and Dagger. Even the music. The music to me, it's like a goth song every 4 songs.
It's sort of a kind of dark Lilith fair than.
Yeah, well, it's dance.
Not music. Quite that. Okay.
Club music, but
clubby.
Yeah, they throw the flavor of goth in there, but of course everybody's dressed in black, so quote unquote goth night. And then of course you're dealing with, Anyway, never mind. But no, I feel very protective of women in general in a vulnerable position. And I think that one of the beauty standards in the goth community is showing off your body. And I feel it's watching, there's nothing wrong with being sexual. And obviously there's a BDSM world everywhere, but it perpetuates the male gaze in a way that I'm not happy with. Granted, but it's also part of the world we live in. So I don't know what to say to that. That is one way that I feel like we're not as enlightened as we'd like to think we are.
I think what you've just been saying is exactly why we don't agree that Bar Sinister is a goth club, because it is so male gazy.
Yes.
Because never mind that like the music is like half pop, half goth. But the go-go dancers are hired suicide girls, and it's really Hollywoody strip clubby. It wasn't always like that. That's a like past few years thing. And I'm not on board with it just because of the vibes that it presents, not because of like any kind of like shame around being a suicide girl.
Exactly.
But the vibe is really different. And I used to be a go-go dancer.
It's not shame over one's body. It's just like you have.
No, it's the vibes that were like,
and not only the ogling vibes and the, you know, grabbing and tipping from money, you know, the sort of performance nature of things, but you also have men standing on the dance floor taking up space, just drooling and trying to just
you
watch
don't stand
a
on the
free
dance
show.
floor. Yeah.
No, but like, so that to me takes me out of it. And you know, whenever, I mean, granted, there's a difference between going to like a play party and then going to obviously there's a time and place for everything, but I don't like, to me it's these guys are going for cheap thrills, and I don't think that's not the.
And they're not usually from within the community either. That's part of the thing.
Yeah.
And I used to go dance at Ruin at the Monte Cristo from like 2010 to 16 maybe. And the vibe was so not that, because if someone behaved that way, it would be like, what the fuck? Because it was such a like Ruin had such a community vibe to it. It was not like a Hollywood or mainstream adjacent thing at all. It was actually felt very safe. I mean, Heather, I'm curious, like if you feel like that feeling of safety was false at Ruin too? Because
no,
like
I feel like what you guys were doing was more art than.
I agree. I felt that way because if I didn't, I also liked it. I mean, it was mostly like, you know, me and Jetty and Tara, but we had one male go-go dancer too, and I've always like had this very strong feeling that if a place will not hire male go-go dancers, then I won't do it either.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I like that.
Like I feel really strongly about that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, I just had the thought, Heather, I don't know, have you read Dunja Brill's book? I looked it up, I forgot the name of the title. Goth Culture, Gender, Sexuality, and Style.
I have it at home. I haven't read it.
Have you read it? Okay. Well, that your thought reminded me of that book.
I actually meant to order this for my thesis. Thank you for reminding me.
Excellent.
Heather, can I borrow it?
It's, you know, I guess I feel like it is a little outdated. I mean, the whole thing, I think it varies from place to place. I think the goth scene in Chicago is very queer. And obviously that's going to differ. But I think one of the main points of the book was this idea that, for example, bisexuality is very much male gazy in the sense that women are expected to be bisexual, and men that are bisexual gain cultural capital from doing that women don't. That goth is more hyper feminine, and men are allowed gender bending more than women are, and that sort of thing. And I do think a lot of that, because this book was from 2008, and I do think a lot of that has changed, but I think that has been part of the goth scene historically. I'm sure that's part of the goth scene now. So a lot, I think you would like that book. It speaks to a lot of that.
Yeah, I definitely have been intending to incorporate that one. I haven't done so.
Yeah, I wish it would change. I wish it would evolve a little bit faster.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, for as much as we talked about goth being this sort of false confidence in goth being left-leaning or whatever, I think a lot of the changes that have happened culturally in goth and being more accepting of like trans people or whatever given social topic you want to pick hasn't come from goth as much as it has from pushes outside of goth culturally from those minority groups, and goth sort of like picking it up. And that's always been a disappointing part to me, because I think we think that we're progressive, but I do think we are in a lot of, you can compare us to lots of different communities, and we are, but I still think we lag behind actually progressive communities in a lot of ways.
Completely.
I think we move slowly as a people. I think that's very true.
Mm.
I remember when we had my friend Bob on Open Graves, British Bob, he made a really good point that was like distinguishing the difference between subculture and counterculture. And he was saying in like almost like a very critical way of our scene community that we are a subculture, but goth is not necessarily a counterculture. And like that, I think, sort of speaks to
for this debate.
We're gonna, you guys got another couple hours, because
oh my god, I know.
There's a perennial debate between Dani and I.
I know you have to go, Heather, so I think we can absolutely.
But no, I want it to be both, but like I think what Bob was observing was about like what he got actually like I think wants what you want.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Just to throw a little wrinkle that I usually throw in with this is I kind of distinguish an active counterculture and a passive counterculture. And I consider goth to be along the lines of a passive counterculture, where we're not.
That makes sense.
We're not agitating for change, but we're being the change we want to see in a more passive sense. But we're still counter in that sense.
I will not comment.
I guess my question would be
That's
like,
fine.
isn't that
Okay, Vesta and I have gotten into it over.
I know we don't want to get I love this. We should just
No.
have like a crossover podcast like monthly.
One of the items, because we have a list of topics that we intend to talk about that we never circle back to. So we're gonna do like let's get them all out. So we have a list, and one of them is like, I think Vesta and I were arguing over like, is goth the subculture part of pop culture? And like we were going back and forth about that. That's also it's culture. It's culture. Yeah. Anyways,
having thoughts
too.
I emailed very early on, years and years ago, when I was just getting interested in the academic study of goth. I emailed Paul Hodkinson, who's probably one of the better known sociologists.
Oh, I have his book right here.
And I asked him this question about the difference between culture, subculture, and counterculture. And I don't know if he was just busy or not, but he basically was like, yeah, it kind of doesn't matter. Everybody thinks something different. I was like, okay, this is not helpful.
That's actually a great response. I love that.
Bison. Well, thank you so much for having us on. I'm sorry that
No, it's fine.
Yeah, thank you. This has been really fucking amazing. This has been a good time.
This was a great time.
Yeah, always a lot of fun.
No, I'm
delighted.
Like
a 3-hour pod.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do this because I've been staring at that picture too long. Sorry.
Heather, you are just the darkness right now.
You are. And I have to say before we go, Vesta, I'm a huge fan of dangly earrings, and those are fantastic earrings. I would have worn some if I knew I was doing video, but I love those. Yeah.
They are from a vendor called Cannibal Rose. I'll plug her on this podcast.
I'll have to look that up. Well, that felt like a old school episode of Cemetery Confessions, didn't it?
It did.
I like that.
It was good fun.
All right. Well, I think just a couple observations I had.
Okay.
Well, my first thought was around the idea of goth as a mindset.
Okay.
More along the lines of how it has been historically situated in goth. And so again, just speaking from my own experience, in the early 2000s, I think saying there was a goth mindset was a fairly common thing that sort of was increasingly ridiculed as time went on. Usually post that era, the argument is along the lines of goth being a mindset is akin to goth being anything, and it sort of pulled the understanding of goth away from a locus of music. I think there were like two primary time spans where there was this hyper focus on music and like debates about music and debates about what goth music is, when that became more prevalent and sort of pushed the idea of a mindset out. So the first one that I can think of is the early and mid 90s, when goth was undergoing that transformation out of the 80s and sort of redefining itself. You know, we talked about this before, sort of looking at the 80s and saying, well, it's not dark enough, so let's make goth our own thing. Get away from these dudes who don't even want to be called goth and really embrace the fact that we are goths.
Yeah.
And I think that was more of a music movement. I think that started to burn out in the late 90s, and there was less and less music being put out. Actually, Azzy was just, or was it Azzy? No, Ryan mentioned to me the other day that Adria was trying to remember what the name of a Marionettes song was, and I was like, oh yeah, the Marionettes, I forgot about them. All these weird like 90s bands. But you started to get late 90s, you started to get the rise of like Gothic Beauty, Hot Topic, fewer and fewer bands putting music out. And so that's when I think the community, when I started to get into it, and the focus of goth sort of turned a bit away from only goth music and into these other interests within the scene, like media content, comics, cartoons, movies, magazines, stuff like that. You can see it in the documentaries of the time, and what the interviewees are talking about goth being and what they do, and sort of having these po-faced personas and this kind of thing. Mindset, I think, was a big part of that. The way you see the world, the way you interact with the world. And then the second time goth became overly concerned with music is the more recent one, like mid 2010s, sort of more towards where we are now, where we just started to get this explosion of post-punk stuff. And we still had the specter of the industrial future pop club dominance thing and the Killstar halls that I mentioned. So that's when you really got the pushback against goth being anything other than music. And so I think part of that was this pushback against goth being this like ephemera that's easily stereotyped and then co-opted. So like graveyards, crows, darkness, things that can be recuperated into quote unquote mainstream projects. But goth music is almost never used that way. You know, you had the stuff in the 90s like The Crow. The Night of Demons has a Stigmata Martyr in it by Bauhaus. What else? Like The Hunger, stuff like that. But it's a lot fewer and farther between. Certainly not to the point of what people complain about, which is the costume of goth. And so I think people sort of turned on that idea because you did have people saying, well, goth is a mindset, so I don't need to listen to music or whatever. And it's sort of, but underlying that too is, I think, that neo-Marxist concept of the culture industry, that functions as a system of mass production to transform cultural products into commodities to sustain the status quo, kind of thing. Maybe not in those exact words, but I would hear people say similar things to that around the commodification of goth or consumerism or that kind of thing. And we sort of, actually, I saw this quote from Peter Murphy circulating that's kind of summed that up. I think I wrote it down in here somewhere. Yeah, it's this quote. I assume it's a quote. I never actually fact checked it, but I've seen it going around on social media that says, quote, "The goths are beautiful, a vast depth of subcultural and poetic ideas, and we would identify that. I can't talk. We would identify with that as we did back in 1979, but not today's modern distortion, the costume without the brain. And that's always been a frustration of mine when you try to boil goth down to it's just music. Because as we talked about with the fashion, I think that misses the point of what the music is and the depth of the music, and makes culture kind of a very anemic thing. That quote also just feels like old man yells at clouds to me. I don't know, because like I think if it, I could maybe get on board with it if it was an explicit critique of capitalism, but it feels more like the older goth on their high horse, sort of chastising the baby bats for the way that they choose to express goth.
Okay.
Because it's not the way that we did goth, and now look at you. You know, look at what you've done to my boy. So it always that kind of bugs me.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you were saying there, as far as the mindset. The big issue I have with the whole mindset thing, it tends to, at least to me, fly in the face of the idea of goth as a community. Because a mindset, yeah, you could associate with people with the same mindset, but mindset to me feels like more of a solitary endeavor. It's just the way you perceive the world, and it doesn't necessarily imply any sort of communalism, any sort of shared culture, any sort of shared identity. It's not about being in community with people. And as we expressed on the show with Vesta and Heather, and as we've expressed in previous episodes as well, the community is an important factor in the strength of goth as a whole. I mean, frankly, whether you call it a culture, a subculture, or a counterculture, all of those things require more than one person. Otherwise, it's not a culture, it's a hobby.
I guess the way I would look at that is the mindset. So I wouldn't say goth, again, like with anything, goth isn't just a mindset. That's a part of the whole. But I think the
but that was the
mindset
premise, is that people interpreting it as just the mindset. At least that's how I
right. Yeah, I
interpret
would
your
agree with
initial
that.
premise, is that
But
you're
I think,
critiquing that.
yeah. But I think also mindset, if you want to look at it as a philosophical lens or whatever, we kind of talked about that last episode, so I won't get into that as much. But I think that is something that is in conversation with the community, because what are you basing that on? It's interaction with something, some media, some person, some comment on the internet, some experience with goth or something goth adjacent, some collectivist sort of, not zeitgeist, but like ideas, ideals, concepts, ideologies that are brought forth through communal interaction somewhere. I think it's hard to be a solo, especially with, I mean, even before the internet, I don't think that was really as much of a thing as people want to say it is, and that's a book. But yeah, I think that the concepts that make up a mindset are coming from somewhere, and that somewhere has some community aspect to it.
I can see that, how the idea of a mindset, it doesn't come out of nothing. It doesn't get invented out of whole cloth. It's not a parthenogenic concept. One could debate either way on that. I guess my perspective of it is, regardless of where it comes from, if the focus is simply on the having of the mindset, then you're not furthering the culture. You may have mind of the culture to develop the mindset, but you're not giving back. You're simply absorbing something, or you're not necessarily giving back. You can give back with, the mindset thing, but there's no communal aspect to having a mindset, even if it might have been inspired by either being within a community or witnessing a community. And I think it is that lack of giving back that's my main issue. Whereas things like music, things like uh, aesthetics, sartorial aesthetic and stuff, a lot of that is shared. It's communicative. It doesn't really have a meaning in isolation, whereas a mindset can have individual meaning in isolation. So I
I
guess if
get.
it's just a mindset, then I don't feel it
Mhm.
implies being a part of a community.
So there's the other, so there's two parts to, I mentioned the sort of like the conceptual aspect of a mindset that I do think is uh created through interaction with other organisms and objects. But there's also I think the mindset isn't just a thought experiment, it's also uh embodied or enacted sort of in this so if you look at the different aspects of what the mindset might be, if there's a celebration of artistry or DIY roots or whatever, then that can be incorporated into your day-to-day life in a way, because that is the way that you're perceiving what's important in the world, like sort of the way that quote from Azzy that I come back to every once in a while that I think is funny, that at some point in every goth's life they are a DJ, um,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of points to the idea that the mindset is something that is integral to your sense of self, and because that kind of runs through your blood, because that is something that you lionize or is important to you, then you act on that. Um, and Yeah, I think that's the end of my thought.
That's okay. That I mean that makes sense. And yes, a mindset. I don't know. I guess part of me conceives of a mindset as a very private way of processing the world around you, and it doesn't necessarily. I mean, depending on what the mindset is, obviously the everyone in goth is a DJ implies that the mindset involves an engagement with the music, and now we're bringing the music in again. Um, it also involves the idea that the mindset has a performative aspect to it, which is not a necessity of a mindset. A mindset can be performative. That's part of, a certain type of mindset wants to advertise itself, wants to portray itself, wants to perform itself with others because it feels its existence only matters if other people can perceive it. But that's again not every mindset. There are plenty of solitary, isolationist, hermetic mindsets. I guess not hermetic, but hermit-like. Those are two separate words. Um, so you can have a mindset in isolation, but a mindset could be an impulse to interact.
Of
Um,
course, but of course, then I could just argue that that is not even isolationist anyway, because that's a anthropocentric perspective of what isolation is, and you're actually in communion with lots of things. But I just think I think those things are all entangled anyway, and you don't really you're interacting with the world regardless. And so the way you interact the world is going to be informed by the way that you think about the world.
I guess my concern is you you're resistant to an anthropocentric concept. And I
Yes.
get that that's inherent to your active network theory stuff. But if you take that, I guess, to an extreme, what is the point of interacting with an environment if the only entity that can perceive of that is the individual that is interacting? I mean, what are you acting for? What are you acting with if it is just an environment that is not a perceiving entity?
Well, I mean, you change the environment and the environment changes you. I don't think you can't separate the two things. They're already, you're interacting with it whether you want to or not. It's already entangled. Um, it's like the idea that, it's a keyboard is not just a tool. It's an interaction that goes both ways. I didn't expect we were going here. Oh, I may be too tired and drunk for that. But
How much did you drink? You just started drinking towards the last half.
the thing is, I don't
You haven't
drink.
drunk in a while, though. Yeah,
I
that
don't
makes
ever
sense.
drink. I just happen to have some stuff that I had bought a long time ago and never drank. Okay, so there's a couple different concepts here. The first is extended cognition. So people are agents, objects are agents, and processes span multiple agents. If I squeeze my fist, I'm not just squeezing it. There's multiple material networks that are interacting to complete that sequence, that process. So what is a subject? There aren't pure subjects. Subjects are enacted into being. They don't pre-exist. They're enacted through material networks. So there's no clean cut where one agent begins and one and then ends and then another one begins. But I'll get into the embeddedness in a second. But and then all of that exists within historical, sociocultural contexts as well. So the glass I'm drinking out of has the potential to be a drinking vessel, but isn't intrinsically a drinking vessel. It's contingent on interactions with other agents. It's one of the mediums through which that interaction takes place. It's not necessary and sufficient on its own to be a glass of beer. And you don't necessarily think about those extended and embedded networks that create the conditions through which you can pour a drink and have a container for the drink. A glass on its own isn't a vessel for drinking. It can be many other things. It's not intrinsically, essentially a glass that holds beer. It's a product of processes of other human and non-human agents taking part in a process to create that environment. Holding liquid isn't a dispositional property. It's contingent on other actors, right? Like my hand grabbing the glass takes place through this scaffolded collection of biological organisms working together. And there's the gravitational forces, there's all of this entanglement. It's constitutional, not causal. And there's the historical contingency, the conceptual contingency, and they are continuously enacted because that structure needs to be maintained, or other processes will take place and other things will become. Yeah, it's that idea of being embedded, which is that there is a reciprocal link between me and the things around me, and those things and myself don't exist. It cannot exist without, or cannot exist separately. We only exist because of that entanglement.
You only exist in the way you exist.
Right.
Because I think
Yes,
individual objects or individuals can exist in absentia, but
no.
they would exist differently uh, depending on what their environment is that they can interact with.
Well, there's still an environment though.
But an individual could exist in a void.
But the void is an environment. Like, I guess as a thought experiment, but
Yes. We're deep into the realm of thought
that
experiment
would
at
be
this point.
right. That would be a different universe than what we have now.
I guess the question I would have then is, given the actor network theory framework, what constitutes community? Or what is necessary to constitute community?
I don't know if community is a term. I mean, like
It's
community
certainly
can be
not by
be
yeah.
many things.
Can an individual be in community with their environment and only their environment?
Well, so I mean, the environment is also contingent on history and social context as well. Like the house that I'm in exists because my in-laws had, on a single income of $30,000 a year in 1970, whatever, enough money to be able to build their own house and
Mm-hmm.
then get the tax breaks and everything to be able to sustain that and whatever, all that kind of stuff. Um, and so even if I guess if I lived here alone and never left, I'm still, it's this, it's a flat ontology in the sense that there's the web of interaction spreads out
Mm-hmm.
in and these things don't, so like when I turn on a light switch, the light turns on because there's a interaction between the components of the light bulb and the wire in the wall and me flipping the switch, but also the wires in the wall because somebody put it there and somebody created the copper cable, and there's like this whole interaction and the things don't happen without the other things.
So when do we
So
get to
man, I'm
God did
I'm
it?
when do we get to God did it? No. 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 I'm too tired to have this conversation. Not too tired. I haven't read up on this in quite a while. These are all good questions. I'm just not explaining the
No,
thought
that's
process
fine.
well.
That's fine. I'm just trying to be
Um,
vaguely
yeah.
Socratic
No, it's fun. It's
with
good
your
to
assertions.
no, it's good. Yeah, it's good to do the mental exercise because it's yeah, something I haven't thought about in quite a while. Um, but yeah, my broader point, I guess, because I think I'm hitting a dead end here with that line of questioning, is just that uh, having a mindset aspect to goth does not negate the importance of everything else and doesn't mean that you can just say, goth is Hello Kitty and Hello Kitty is now goth. I think that's a
I
logical
mean,
jump that
there is Batts Maru.
there's what?
Bats Maru.
That sounds
Hello Kitty
really
character
familiar.
that's a bat.
Oh, okay. Maybe I haven't seen that. I
Send
guess I
you a
just get
picture soon.
frustrated with internet discourse around what goth is because a lot of people are just so rigid and so assured and also hyper focused on like one thing. And the oversimplification of what culture and community is in online discourse bugs me, I think, is my broader complaint.
That's fair. And I guess I was wrong about the Hello Kitty character. They're not a bat, they're a penguin.
Also cute though.
Cute and it is fairly goth coded. So I just posted the
Oh,
Hello Kitty fandom page for Bats Maru. I knew a bunch of people who were fans and they did and it was a not uncommon character to see on Hot Topic merch.
Oh, I've seen that before. I thought that was a Pokemon.
No, that's a Hello Kitty character.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah. Hello Kitty has multitudes. But I guess what I was focusing on is taking any the idea of mindset in the extreme sense of, you know, what happens if you just have a mindset and you eschew everything else.
Yeah.
And why that doesn't work with a conception of goth as a community, because the community is a social construct. And if you do not have social interaction, you do not have social construct, because other, I would say other beings are necessary for the actor network environment to be considered a social construct rather than simply
well, no,
an interaction.
Well, the thing is, actants are objects as well, and other organisms. They don't have to be people.
Oh, no, I know, but to be a social thing, I think it does need to have people. Being with just
Yeah, good
actants, you're not
question. I
in a
don't
social
know.
environment.
I don't know. You're
You're
probably
simply
right.
in an actant environment. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm right. This is just how I'm interpreting
Yeah.
things, and I have not definitely read into it as nearly as much as you have. But I feel that social, in its very root, requires
Right.
society, which does require.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's part of the actor network theory is breaking down the division between like social and nature, or social and science, or nature and science, or whatever, because we have these ideas that these things are silos and they exist in maybe interaction with each other, but they're their own things. The social is the realm of humans, and nature is the realm of, but that these things are actually don't exist without the other, and they
Right.
are yeah, enmeshed in that way. I don't know.
Right.
I had a thought. I lost it.
I mean, no, I agree with that. It's because all things exist and all things are interacting. So taking a society or a social interaction in absentia of everything else is a false analysis. It's going to lead to, you know, a misunderstanding of the dynamic, because it's not just that social interaction that defines the entire event that took place, or however you want to conceive of that moment in time. Uh, and yeah, you can't say that, oh, you and I talking right now, this social interaction is can be viewed of and analyzed without acknowledging that we're talking on Zoom with microphones in our own spaces. We are not seeing each other's physical bodies, even though we are socially interacting.
In my head, I am. Meow.
Well, that's fine. You do what you want in your head. I have no agency in your imagination. Unless you're into that.
I'm
In
just
which case I
Googling
have all the agency you want.
actor network theories. Anyway, no, I'm not Googling it though, because I stopped using Google. Anyway,
What are you doing it?
Start page.
Start
Actually, this is
page.
Brave Search, so I think Brave Search uses DuckDuckGo, maybe?
I don't remember. I don't think it uses DuckDuckGo, but I could be wrong. I actually do use the Brave Search automatically because I mean I use Vivaldi, but the default search engine that I set in there is Brave Search. So I'll frequently do the G space and then the search if Brave doesn't give me what I want, because I can on command tell it to use Google instead, or any of a number of other ones. But yeah, Brave is my default search at home as well.
It depends what browser I'm using. I was going to set them all to start page, but I haven't. I don't think Brave I changed. My Brave browser I changed to start pages, just Brave Search. Well, anyway, was there anything in that episode you wanted to follow up on, or good?
I guess the There was a whole line of questioning I wanted to go down, but I wanted to do it with Heather and Vesta.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe
Because I
if we
wanted to
do an
dig
episode
into
with them.
darkness,
Mm.
because that is their key initial question.
Mhm.
Where I want to take that is, and we did kind of touch on it a little bit, but the idea that, I mean, goth in general, when we talk about the music, when we talk about the mindset, when we talk about the sartorial idioms, darkness always comes up. And,
Yeah.
to focus on the mindset, a lot of times the quote is, and I think it's in your little soundboard
Goth
stinger.
pocket.
Yes, it's in your goth pocket. No, it's in one of your little soundboard stingers that you usually intersperse the
Yeah.
episode of, what is goth? And there's that
Yeah.
one person, the goth is a mindset.
Yeah.
And I think some it does take, it's an appreciation of darkness and the darker things of life.
Uh-huh.
My question about that is, darkness is very broad. It's a lot of
And
things that are
subjective.
considered dark in darkness. And yes, it's subjective. And there are also an awful lot of cultures and subcultures who also focus on and
Yeah.
embrace the darkness,
Yeah.
but they're not the same.
Yeah.
What is an embrace in darkness within goth is going to be
Mhm.
different from what is an embrace of darkness in beat culture, different from what is an embrace of
Yeah.
darkness in metal culture,
Metal. Yeah.
in rap culture. All of these have a concept of darkness that they'll embrace, and more importantly, a concept of darkness that they do not embrace
Yeah.
very specifically. And so what I wanted to sort of explore, and we may do that at a later date, and maybe even on, if we go on to Open Graves, if they invite us on there at some point, we can discuss it there as well. What are, in all of our minds, the boundaries of darkness that in a goth cultural idiom we embrace? And what aspects of it do we tend to eschew?
Yeah.
The one thing that I find is interesting is, their foundational question of what is your darkness? The answer to that question is not usually a darkness that we will pursue, because it's usually a trauma.
Right.
At least that's
Yeah.
the premise of it.
Yeah.
We don't embrace trauma. Part of the idiom of goth is that we don't hide from it. We perceive it, we confront it, we engage with it, but we're not pursuing it. Where there are other aspects of darkness
Right.
that we do pursue, we actively want to.
Right. We don't perpetuate that.
Correct. It's something that we acknowledge happens to everybody. And part of why we're a safe space is because of that fact. And we're able to be a community of people who understand that trauma is a thing that happens and we're willing
At our
to talk
best,
about
at
it.
least. Yeah.
Yes. That's the ideal.
Yeah.
That's sort of the goth. That's the platonic goth.
Platonic goth ideal.
Is that we understand, embrace, and accept, but we're not in pursuit of the traumas and those dark things. And there are lots of other aspects of darkness that we don't like. We talk about things like fascism.
Yeah.
That's also can be enmeshed in the dark umbrella. Human trafficking.
Sure.
SA,
all sorts of normal things you could
all
mention.
kinds of things.
Normal things, horrible things is what I would
Yes.
say.
Yes. I mean, there's a reason that we have problems when we're compared to, say, shock rock or edgelords.
Yeah.
That there's an aspect of that pursuit of darkness, of that engagement of darkness, that we aren't enthusiastic about, even when that engagement of darkness was part of goth's history. See Nazi symbolism in the early eras with Susie and all those bands that were picking up on some of what punk laid down with pushing people's buttons to get to engage with people, or even what
Mm-hmm.
industrial music in its origin, what Genesis and Throbbing Gristle were kind of trying to pull in with industrial, is this idea of things being so abrasive, so shocking, so abrasive, so shocking that they shake people out of their complacency, to force them to act.
Which I don't think works. But
Well, it it doesn't work when the only thing you're trying to do is shake people up, because there's a follow through that needs to be done if you want to make change. I mean, you
right.
make change other way, but if you want to make change in a direction that you know you want, you need to follow that shaking with a directing. Like, okay, we broke you out of your
Yeah,
rut,
yeah.
we broke you out of your complacency. Now we need to channel you to a new riverbed, a new path that the activist individual feels is more correct, more
Yeah, well,
productive, better.
yeah, because I mean, how many people watch the news and are like, "Ah, look at all these overwhelmingly terrible things happening that I have no control over, and I guess I'm just going to keep going to work and not do anything about it except have anxiety, I guess."
Right. And shaking
Uh,
someone out of that rut isn't necessarily going to do anything. It might put them on a different path, but is that path
yeah,
any better? Was it worse? You know, what are you acting to change? And there are some people who are just merchants of chaos, and it doesn't matter to
yeah,
them. They
yeah,
simply want to break the status quo
yeah.
and see what happens. And that's not, I would say, an aspect that Goth will embrace um, as a general cultural ideology, but those people certainly exist.
It can be dangerous to the uh when you mix the pretension of goth with that, because, for
Yes.
example, when a few years ago, when everybody was pissing on the idea of goth rap,
Hmm.
um, to lesser and greater degrees, one of the more troubling takes on that I saw was the leveraging of the idea of goth as a non-violent culture, with the implication that rap culture and the stereotype of black people as violent sort of coming into play there,
Hmm. Hmm.
which had a lot of problematic racist undertones to it that maybe people didn't even realize because they're just white people that have didn't take any time to do any kind of education on that.
I mean,
But
I had a similar discomfort with Cholo Goth
mm,
in that there was a violent undercurrent to all of it that I had perceived. That isn't to say that I had perceived everything, but what I'd experienced of Cholo Goth emphasized violence that I wasn't comfortable with.
yeah, but then again, it's like you have to look at the conditions that the people talking about the violence are in and why they
Hmm.
are in those conditions and where that
Hmm.
comes from. And also acknowledging the fact that I think that like violence can be necessary sometimes to create social change, not necessarily like violence against each other. It's like should Hamas be killing civilians? No. Okay, but ask the question, why is Hamas killing civilians? Because there's an institution that has systemically dismantled any democratically elected governance and any populist movement to push for material changes in the lives of people that are being genocided and have been genocided for a long time. And you get to a point where what is left. This violence exists because it was caused to exist, not by the oppressed, but by the oppressor. And there's a long lineage of liberal white people using the smokescreen of politeness to admonish violence of any type. And it's a privilege to be in a position to say violence is not the solution, even though you look at any historic movement that has created change, real change, and there was an aspect of violence to those that brought about better changes to the lives of the people who needed the change, who were being oppressed. It's people who only understand violence as this abstract thing that don't live in violence. And so this is a whole other conversation that I'm not necessarily prepared to have right now, but
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's having to resist the impulse to demonize a group that you can you feel like you can take, right? You can fight it, you can beat it. So that's why it tends to punch down. Is if you're
Yeah.
trying to fight a scapegoat, it's better to have that scapegoat be a weaker entity, and then you feel like you're being productive by punching down, beating down this weaker entity, and then you feel like you've succeeded, even though your material existence hasn't changed because they aren't actually the
Hmm.
problem. They
Hmm.
weren't the cause. They were simply a patsy that was blamed for it. But it's hard and scary to look at the halls of power who are the actual oppressors and say, I'm going to fight that. It's like,
Yeah.
are you? Are you really?
Yeah.
I mean, historically, most
Yeah.
project progress has come because there were people who
Yeah.
took that fight
Exactly. Yeah.
and won it.
That is, I mean, violence against the state is what creates change. You get like, I think, this sort of state sanctioned protests can be good for for like community building, for making you feel good, for getting connected to people and stuff like that. But it doesn't actually create systemic change in a lot of ways. But we're really off on a tangent now.
That is
Uh,
how it goes.
so, uh, I don't know. I might leave this in end of the year episode. See. Any other thoughts before I wrap up?
Ah,
You don't need to have any. Just giving you the opportunity.
I mean, no. I guess the other thing I did want to recommend some stuff for, again, Vesta and Heather, though mostly for Vesta in this instance, was the Tim Curry memoir Vagabond,
Oh, that's
which
right. Yeah, we were talking
Michelle
about that.
suggested, and it was really, really
Yeah.
good. And the one
Oh, so you
quote,
listened to it?
oh yeah, I did. It was read by Tim Curry as well, which was great.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it was Tim Curry post stroke, but he'd mostly
Hmm.
recovered, so he was not in full command of his amazing charisma and vocal presence,
Yeah.
but it still was very good, and I still quite enjoyed it. Though because it was slower, it made it even easier for me to listen to it at my preferred two times speed.
I don't have any goth recommendations for anything. Nothing
But
I've
the
done in the last month has been goth.
one of the things that I did want to mention on the show, and I'm sure if we leave this in Vesta and Heather will hear it. Um, but one thing I took from the book that I found was a really fascinating thing that uh, Tim said about, of course, his Dr. Frankenfurter character
Mm.
is that Dr. Frankenfurter is completely and totally not in drag. There's no drag involved in that character at all.
Mm.
That's very key to his portrayal of that character.
Mm.
Dr. Frankenfurter is simply wearing traditional Transylvanian garb. It's coded
I
in
love
our
it.
interpretation as drag, but there's an intention that he's saying in drag where you are transgressing.
Hmm.
Dr. Frankenfurter wasn't transgressing, he was simply
Hmm.
being.
Right.
And while it may have happened to be transgressive,
In a certain
it
context for certain people.
right, it wasn't the intention, it wasn't his plan. And that kind of dovetails relatively well with how I view the sort of pathic passive politicization of goth, the idea that as we act in the world with our appearance, as we sartorially dress to express ourselves, our insides on the outside, we aren't, at least I can't say this to everybody, but we aren't necessarily doing so to transgress. We're doing so because that is what we want to do. And it's always been my complaint when people talk about or people throw out well, I mean, if you're so rebellious, what if everybody's wearing black? Are you going to go out in rainbow colors then?
Hmm.
It's like, no, I'll go out in black with everybody else because I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be transgressive. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be in opposition to others. I'm doing it because it's how I think I want to be, and in the way I act, not just the way I dress, is how I think others should be. So it's
Well, that's
kind of
right.
positive
That's why I
if
don't like
they
the word
join me.
passive though, because it's it is maybe not consciously, but it is an action to move the world you are in toward in a certain direction. Right, to be, because you go out dressed how you want to dress because it makes you feel good. You would like the world to be a place where you don't get your ass kicked because somebody doesn't like the way that you look.
Yes.
So it is an action you are taking, a choice you are making. What the motivations for that are will differ. What the um what's Shotsky's word for it? Teleo effective something. The goals of what you are trying to accomplish might differ for people, but it is still a action you're taking to make the world a little bit more in your image, I guess.
It's an action. I guess the way I'm distinguishing active versus passive is not whether I'm making an action or not, because until I'm dead, I'm always making an action.
Mm-hmm.
But it is whether I am trying to force another person to act in a way I want, or I'm just trying to be an example. Whether I'm trying to lead by an example, say, hey, this is just me existing, see how it works, but you have choice, versus I'm going to dress this way and you have to dress this way. And I'm going to tell you to do so. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to browbeat you. I'm going to
it's not
somehow
about forcing.
force you to do it. But I think that's how I'm viewing active versus passive.
More like normalizing.
And that I view as normalizing, I think is a well, part of the insidious nature of normalizing is that it, in my mind, is kind of a passive. So it doesn't instigate a threat response because it's just a thing happening. That's the danger of the Overton window.
But I mean, just a thing happening is still a thing happening. I guess we're pedanticizing ourselves.
But that's what we do.
Yeah. I just made up a word. How about that? Yeah.
But I guess that's, I mean, I'm just trying to explain what I was intending when I'm distinguishing active versus passive.
Right.
Is the application of force, not whether I'm acting or not acting.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that a bit. I think
it's forcing versus non-forcing.
Agree with you. Just I would maybe make some slight shifts.
If you can think of better words from active and passive to distinguish that, I'm happy to take them. I'm not attached to active and passive. I am attached to the idea of enacting with force versus enacting without force.
Right.
I can talk about Wu Wei and go in Taoism, but leading by Wu Wei is kind of what I'm going for with passivity.
Okay. I'll chew on that. Maybe we'll come back to that next year.
Okay.
What a year it's been.
Fucking long year it's been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it's been just a year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels like at work, time just keeps passing and I'm not getting the things done I want to get done.
Tell me about it, brother. Every part of my life feels like that. Well, so speaking of the end of the year, this is the end of our show. No, this is the end of this year's show.
This is
next month, the month after this one, January, we will not have an episode. We'll be taking a hiatus. I already have some ideas for what we're going to be doing next year, but if you don't want to miss our delightful voices and our pretty little faces, you could jump on Patreon. And in January, everyone who is on Patreon will have the opportunity to do our annual Google Hangout. Well, I shouldn't call it Google Hangout anymore. Our annual Goth Hangout, where we all jump on a Zoom call or whatever for a few hours, and I will be there. And we just kind of hang out and talk about everything and nothing at all. And it's always a delight to do that. Nice little break to the routine is the word I'm looking for. I am getting really tired. And so, yeah, if you want to jump on for $1, patreon.com/cemetery confessions. Otherwise, we will return in February with a brand new episode. So that is it from here. Thank you for listening. And until next time,
stay dark.
You don't wake up one day and decide that you are goth. It's a mindset. It comes naturally. It's a lifestyle.
Just so you know, goth is about 3 things: clothing, music, and lifestyle.
I don't actually have a problem with the goth stereotype of the droopy music and the lots of eyeliner and all black.
It's not about being depressed, and it's not about being sad and locking yourself in a dark corner and just writing sad poetry until your fingers bleed. A lot of people think that goths are Satan worshippers, or, they sacrifice animals or they drink blood.
The goth culture is finding beauty where other people wouldn't think to look.
What is goth? It started out as an artistic movement about 400 years ago. Gothic art, Gothic architecture, Gothic literature. Where do you think we get the term Gothic novels from?
To me, what goth is a movement where people who like a certain type of music dress in a certain way to express that taste in music, and that's all it is. It's just an aesthetic thing.
So what makes you goth is not to do with any kind of criteria. I don't know why people set out criteria.
There's a very few things that I actually call goth. You see, that is the difference between old school goths and many other people, is that we are very cautious about what we call goth, actually.
A lot of kids become goths because it just looks cool, and that's fine too. But at its core, it really is this this dismissing of the mainstream belief that we're happy all of the time and no one's ever sad,
The preceding program is a member of The Belfry, a network of blogs, podcasts, and videos for the darkly inclined. Go to thebelfry.rip for more information.